The other people, they'll say no one wanted to play with Rux, but they won't give you what the other options were for those players that didn't play with Rux, right? So here are the options. Upset could have played with Hilly. He wanted to play with Hilly, and he would rather play with Hilly than Rux. Hans could play in G2 with Mickey X, or he could play with Rux. Carzzy could play in Mad Lions with Hylissang, or he could play with Rux. Exakick would rather play with his ERL support, who he just won LFL with twice and went second in EU Masters, than play with another ERL player that he isn't comfortable with. Those are who the other people are picking over Rux, but they'll phrase it to be, oh, Rux is dog. No one wants to play with him.
This is the next episode of the Best Damn League show, period, or if you're from England, full stop. Either way, doesn't matter. I mean, in many ways, here's the difference. I actually feel like maybe Excel is on their period because they could actually improve later in the month. The problem is, to come into the next one, but the problem is, I think for Fnatic, this is full stop. Like, if you're reckless, and then listen, this is the end. Just retire. Just do the honourable thing. Don't even collect the check. Leave the money. Let it go. Put it in charity or something. At least that way, someone will get fed. With that money. Reckless.
You got to keep playing, man. You don't want to end like this.
No, it's true. You don't trade.
Mainly because I don't want competition with live viewing LEC, right? Like if Reckless live viewing LEC, that might actually financially hurt me. So, hey, Reckless, I believe in you. Keep on going.
Yes. Okay. The problem is, though, Dom, he won't be that entertaining. Like the only jokes he does on stream are in Fnatic right now. So, anyway, the guest for this episode, it's the first episode of the season where we're having a guest. It's going to be GrabbZ. Because million factors, like one, it is true, BDS is popping off, so there'll be some interesting angles there. He is technically still contracted to them, though. I will say that, though. So he'll tell us what he can say and what he can't say. And then also, obviously, we've had him on shows many, many times in the past, and I think this is just one of the most interesting splits I've ever seen at the beginning. Like, it's completely mad on where so many of the teams all over the place. So what I thought we could start with here, Dom, is let's just start with the BDS angle. That way we'll see what we can get out of him, what we can talk about with him, and then we can move on. And not least because I've got to say, I'll rewind it. One thing I tried to do on this show, which I don't do in my content more, because I'm the historian, I'm trying to look at like the long-term things. So like put it this way, spoiler, later on when we talk about groups, I'll probably actually be a little bit like down on BDS and don't think they'll do much in the BO3s. I don't think they'll do that well split. Because the historical perspective is like they still have to prove a lot. A lot of those players are nobodies. But I'll tell you what, on this show, you might notice, Dom, I do try to just make it almost like we do when you do power rankings, like just that week generally. Like if someone really does have a good week, I just give it up to them. You got to give people their props. So I've got to say right now, based on what I thought about BDS coming into this split, holy shit, this team's way better. Not just good, Dom. They're way better. Like I'm not joking. If you look at the games they threw this split, they could actually have been top 3 or 4 in this portion of the tournament. For real, if you look, 7 wins got you first. Mate, they had at least like 2 games where they were mad, like controlling positions. They were outplaying people in lanes. Like I don't know what they've done, and obviously some of it's individual performance, but I'm actually very impressed. Like for this portion of the tournament, the BO1, I think like everyone seems to have killed it pretty much on that team and the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I personally 100% agree. Like I thought that they would be better than most. Because like obviously I watched a lot of LFL. I watched a lot of that team play, and I was thinking that, like they'll probably be better than some of the teams that I think would be like actually terrible. Like Heretics is also better than I thought. I mean, I thought that essentially BDS would be better than Heretics and they'd be better than Astralis, and that would be enough to qualify for this next stage. But I didn't think that they would look so consistently good, because the thing about BDS is not just that they've won 5 games. It's that when they're losing to teams, they don't even look bad in their losses. Yes. Like they look like they're competitive with the top of the table when they end up losing to them even. It's not like they're bending over and getting absolutely obliterated by G2 in the G2 game. Like they had options to win that game. They ended up outplaying them in a 2v2 bot. Like there was situations where if they were able to tweak one or two things, they could have actually won that game. So for me, that's the more impressive part. It's not just their record, it's just that they played like 9 competitive games. Like they really haven't got stomped in many of them at all.
GrabbZ, what are your initial thoughts on the BDS team?
I agree. I think also the draft in a way where this is the case, right? Similar, like we did the same thing last spring. We make drafts that like rely to win early, and they do. Like Crown is really good to like lead a game from ahead, right? And they have good matchups. Labrov is also playing well, I think. Like Crown, of course, is like standing out, and he's like playing really fucking well. But I think Labrov also is playing better than on Vitality. So I think the bot lane is really good.
We do the obvious thing, which is I'll just pause there. Let's get that topipic out. People all want to know, right? No, the topic is, was GrabbZ, this is what I heard. People sometimes lie, rumors, different truths. Well, I've heard that last year, GrabbZ and the coaching staff's the reason why Crowley didn't play in the active lineup. So was something different back then? What's the reasoning? Because obviously, look, it is a totally different team, but all that.
Yeah.
But to a fan, it looks like, what the hell? This guy was there the whole time. You know. So what's your take on that topic?
I mean, first of all, like very clearly, he's not playing like he's playing way better than they did, right? Like don't watch LFL, like especially in summer, the first weeks that Crowley was running it down.
Yeah, I mean, I blame Dreamer Ace for that, though. To be honest, I thought Dreamer Ace was I thought he was terrible. Straight up.
Let's just say, like, if it was that clear that he's that much better, he would have played. And I have to think about how much I can review it, but we had like 2 different iterations of teams we could have taken after Korea, and in one, Crowley was playing, and one was not. I could not kill off the academy team, right? I couldn't swap all 5 players, let's say, if I wanted to. I had to have a team in the academy which can still win LFL and go to your masters.
Ah, right. Okay.
So basically, we had the issue in spring that we had no vocal leader, and in the LFL you have Aggressivo and Crowley, who both talk a lot and lead the game. So ultimately, we had 2 separated rosters which could have played LEC, and we just happened to decide on the one where Aggressivo played instead.
Okay.
I have to think like how much I can talk in depth about it.
Yeah.
But even long term, the roster that's playing right now, and I mean, Goto was there with me, right? So like he can confirm probably we worked together. Like it was with Goto.
Yes.
That this was like long term, the roster playing right now would have been the roster winner anyways. Like we thought, okay, Sheo has talent, but maybe too early for him. Let's put him LFL back. Adam, I mean, don't want to talk too much, right? But he had some issues in terms of like discipline and stuff, and he took it really hard. And of course he should, right? No player should be happy getting benched. So right now the relationship is not that great, but that was the feeling I had. And afterwards, he told me like he thinks it was a good step for him.
Okay.
So we also thought about long-term growth of BDS, and I felt at that moment that no roster that I could have made at that time would have had secure top 6 for sure. So I decided to make a roster that maybe long-term is a better growth, or like makes the players better.
Okay.
Crowley is a player like as a bot laner who like takes more resources but also uses them well for sure. And if he wanted to play towards bot side, we could have taken him. But also we had the idea that in Korea, I think I can say this, like we came from Matt, and he was like really down, right? Because apparently also the atmosphere wasn't great for him.
Okay.
And he just was like happy to play somewhere else. And Nuclear had like 90% or 80% win rate in scrims when we had like in-houses. Like every team Nuclear was on, he just stomped.
Okay.
So it was really hard. Like I think also Crowley towards the end was better than Mati, but in the beginning Mati was better.
Yes.
And we have the games, so it's not like...
Yeah, also he name changed, so can we call him Nuck? Let's not dead name him, let's call him Nuck for the rest of the episode. Thank you, GrabbZ. Appreciate it.
By the way, GrabbZ, I've got a quick question. Like, you still live in Germany, yeah?
I do, yeah.
Do you ever shop? Like, obviously, it's a pretty good spot if you want to get good prices. Do you ever shop at Aldi?
No.
You've never shopped at Aldi? Because they have like, if they're pretty good, they have like crisps and stuff,
yeah,
like meats, and you can get all the stuff Germans like. You can get like walnuts and peanuts. You've never shopped there?
No, not really.
Oh, you should check out Aldi's nuts. There you go. That's for you, Crowley. Just whatever. There you go. It was low-hanging fruit, like the nuts.
to cut us off.
Really all that for that on a talk show? Okay, Thorin.
Whatever. You come up with a joke then, aside from Reckless.
Basically,
that was my nut joke was right there.
That wasn't bad actually. It wasn't bad actually.
I just fired that in there.
Fair play. The problem is the crowd didn't all get it, but go on, GrabbZ.
Yeah, so cut the short, right? Like Karen is playing really well right now, like good for him. And there is a good chance he would have been marginally better than Mati. Oh, I report this well, because it's actually like frames the entire career bootcamp, right? Which people still don't know about why. We had insane issues about how I see it, how people should behave as a pro. We never intended to do lots of changes in BDS. The plan was the entire year the same roster, but it was so bad that I was like, okay, we go to Korea, we're fucking 100 games, and you show me you deserve to play. And we made clear behavior is really important. And at that moment, even if Crowley was like visible better, still, Mati was basically the only player in Spring who actually tried for his life to be a pro player.
Right. Okay.
And if it's coaching staff who say this is important to you, I would lose trust, I feel like, in the team if they
suddenly... It was important for the culture to have him.
And I take that guy out who actually tried hard. To put it into context, I'm not going to say who it was. It was not Mati, of course, right? But for example, in a week where each player had homework to do, I said, take one champ you really want to play, make a presentation out of it, show the team how to play it, right? And Mati had watched 5 games of Caitlyn on the DRPL, 2 of them in SEK, said how to draft, how to play it, which way to play, how to play from behind, all the stuff, 20 pages of presentation. And one player had a 3-page presentation. 1 was the splash of the champion. 2 was because this skill is good. And 3, I can't blind pick it.
I love it. I love it.
That was the focus of effort you had in the team, right?
I love it.
So I can understand why Crownie felt that he was better, because in over stretch on time career he was, and also scrims they were better. But I'm willing to die on the hill if I say as a coach, I value behavior a lot in terms of like how much effort you put. That I don't want to bench the one guy who's new in the scene but is trying for his life and actually putting in the effort.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, but from the perspective, I mean, Thorin and I always talk about this on our shows. That almost like sounds worse for Xmatty from my perspective, because it's like, oh, he was trying really hard, he's putting in full effort, and those were the results that he ended up getting.
One thing just to note, like because I know for a fact Matti could have played games better, right? I'm not saying he couldn't have or couldn't have carried games, but also our play towards bot of jungle was abysmal the entire summer. Like I think he had like a 4% jungle proximity in the entire split, which is 4%. Not playable in certain matchups, right? Like I think Duff had the number somewhere, I can't find it, but it was like incredibly low. So
was that just because of jungle, or was that the communication with jungle? Because like a lot of junglers are not going to be able to see it, but
it goes both ways, right? I can't go into in depth. Like it goes both ways. But either way, I think also he gets memed a bit too much. I think he's not that bad of a player. Of course, Crownie, like he's showing it right now, as a better player. This is something that there's no way around it, right? But I think like Xbox Matthew is the best thing that came out of it. It's a nice nickname, and I think he should name change. But he's a great guy, trying hard, and he has shown glimpses of good games. And he is not the reason that BDS performed worse, basically, right? It was a dysfunctional team between, and also I think this is fair to say, coaching staff, management, and team together as a triangle was dysfunctional. Like at some point it broke down. I'm not gonna pretend that I did everything perfect, right? I was part of the issue, of course. So was everyone else. So the entire structure BDS just didn't function. He's a bit more of an emotional player who needs a bit more a good atmosphere. He tried to fit in, he didn't. That also showed on stage. But like any 5 players of the team looked really bad in the summer, anyways. That's all I'm gonna say.
One thing I will throw in there is like
also he did not call it the Nash turn, for example, right?
Okay.
Stuff like this, where like this was early season against Vitality. If we win that game, we have confidence, and the season can be different. I mean, Dom knows it as a player, right? And like Thorin, you know from sports as well how confidence and momentum can make things happen. And we had 2 games. One where like Aggressivo was like 15-0 on Akali against Fnatic.
Yep.
And we fight without them and lose the game. And then this game where like we won the game and they just turned Tam Kench and lose it. Instead of being 3-1, we're 1-3.
I'll definitely say if people forget and they just look at the record, BDS had way more like good drafts, good starts, like leads in lanes. It's just they lost a lot of those games in the early part of the split.
Good drafts is questionable with me, right?
I'll give you that one, whatever. Right. The one thing I was going to say was this. To be fair, though, this is why actually also sometimes, especially if you can't reveal these stories, like I'm sure Dom's heard these a million times, sometimes there are ones where it's like, this player's way better than that one. It's like sometimes there are things behind the scenes that not only can you not know, you could not even guess. Like you couldn't possibly guess that thing about the homework. Like you couldn't, there's no way to know that as just looking at them. Like I'll give a mad story from CSGO, but I'll carefully hide all the names so only a really like super sleuth could guess it, right? Because this actually would be like a banger if this info came out. There's a big name player, not as big as you think, but I'm keeping it in this range, in CSGO, who was on a top team, Dom, and he was making the biggest salary of his career. I'm talking, he was making like a big, like 30K a month type, which is big money in CSGO. And even though he's on this massive team, he, for whatever reason, because people are just weird like this, he just had, all his motivation was gone. And the thing is, in this team, though, it wasn't like a normal teammate. You don't just come, and it's not even like what GrabbZ said, where you just say, here's some homework. This team actually had like a computerized homework system, where it was like a sort of thing that they took from like how a uni does it, where you had to like log in, and then your coach could set you like, you know, like, I want you to check this, like check these demos and these spots. And then you had to, what you had to do, and this is the genius of it, right, was they didn't just design it so it's like, instead of them saying on Discord, the reason they did it was when you had to check like that, right? Here's what the guy didn't know. You had to check that you'd done your homework essentially each week, right? And it's part of what justified your salary as well as your player, right? Like the idea that you've been a professional. And this is what's amazing. This guy was such a scumbag. He not only played like shit, but then when they went and checked the system, what he didn't know was like they like logged everything. So this guy basically had checked that he'd done all the homework, but he was just doing it like instantly, basically. And he hadn't done any of the homework. And no joke, people think it's just that he played bad, he was fired. No, maybe that could turn on. Maybe there's reasons. It was that thing there, right, where basically when he did that, like they was just fired immediately because of that factor. Because like, as you say, like that, think about the drain that would be on the team culture. And in that case, he's playing bad as well as doing that. Like, that's death on both ends. The attitude's terrible. And if you're the big name player as well, like you can bring the others with you. Like the younger players are going to think, oh, if he gets away with it, that's kind of true.
Yeah, and also like just because you mentioned it's really important in this context as well, right? We can say Crown is better than Mati. Like,
Yeah,
Dom likes to say,
we have
right?
ice.
Crown is
Yep.
better, but
Yep.
team culture is something that one player can dictate if you have a good player or a really bad player, right?
Yes.
And if I sit there as a coach again, and this is the most important part, because I know Crowny fought for a long time, I hate him, that's why he didn't play. And I try to explain it to him. If I go to Korea and say, this is the main part I would judge you on, right? On the effort you put in. And he puts in the most effort, he has to play in a way. And then this is a hill I'm willing to die on, and I will still die on him. I will still do the same thing over again, because this is the thing I said to the team. The team culture is the most important. I have a guy who actually puts in the effort and will do it gaily. I will take him. I'm not saying Crowny doesn't do it, right? But as an example, he didn't deserve to be kicked by that metric that I said before.
Yep. I mean, I think I do agree that BDS was probably doomed to fail even if you played or not, which is one thing that I actually did tell Crownshot personally, because everyone knows that I'm like good friends with Crowny. One thing that I told him was that I thought it was a blessing in disguise, because if you look at the narratives around Crownshot that are so damaging to a player, like the reason that he ended up like not having the offer is that he was expecting after season 11 was because of that best of 5 against Fnatic, where he ended up getting wrecked by Upset, or like at least the perception. Like, I don't think it was as bad as people were making it seem, but Upset definitely was the better player in that series. And if he comes into BDS and they're shit, and then they're still shit, he's gonna get part of that blame. And who knows what happens after that. So I was actually like telling him that I thought that it was almost good for him that he didn't end up playing in that summer split doomed BDS team.
I didn't want to mention it, but now you did. It's like we had to talk with each player one-on-one, like he and the coaching staff to explain why he doesn't play. Limit also got benched, right? And I told them I cannot guarantee that no matter what team I have, I will be top 6. Because let's be honest, I think the talent in general was not there to guarantee it.
Sure.
There was some configuration of players that would have made it. And I told them, if I can't guarantee this, I'd rather go for long term, and I'd rather have you as a player have a good split LFL than come back to LEC and be 8th or 9th again. So of course no player wants to hear it, but this was also like part of the consideration, right?
I've got a follow-up that I should ask that's an obvious one as well, GrabbZ. Again, you decide what to say, right? Yeah. The one thing that it sounds like might have screwed you here, mate, is you were building for long term and you only got a year. Like, did you think you had this year as well and you were able to get obviously, look, I don't want to take anything away from this coaching staff, but a lot of those players were in the org. Like, you could potentially have been reaping the benefits now, right?
Well, I think like the reason was not, the results were not the reason that we don't work together anymore, right?
Right.
I think it wasn't the culture fit between me and BDS. I think some stuff that I promised that in the beginning did not happen, not for fault of theirs. Like, stuff changes, right? And to be fair, also that, I mean, people who know me, first of all, I have a perma resting bitch face. I look angry all the time, and I was angry a lot of times. And I think that also,
this is where you insert your German joke here, like this.
It's all good. I know the joke is like, how would we know?
Like, basically,
is he laughing? Is he smiling? Yeah, keep going.
okay.
I think basically to narrow it down, and I think the way I can say it is that of course, if the players have a perma angry coach there, right, and they don't reflect well on why I would be angry, and the org is not there in person, or the communication between management and org is bad. That's what it was, because the links didn't work, right? I'm not saying what happened there, but just the communication was bad objectively. They will just hear they had the perma angry coach there who was not helping them. That's what the org is, right?
Right.
I disagree. We didn't have talks about it really, in my point of view, in the right time. So that's also why like the whole benching thing happened late. But I can see that from a pure point of view. So I'm happy for them. They're playing well. I think I have the same criticism for them. I would have talked about Misfits last year. Is they, without saying too much about how they think about the game, there's a certain pattern you see every game.
Bit
they follow that one. If they can play towards it, that's good. And the best of ones. And like if you play especially 3 teams a week, no one is going to prepare for you specifically. I think they'll talk about it later. In the best of 3, they should get punished for it.
Yes.
It should be harder for them to get to that point.
The thing I just wanted to throw in was, obviously everyone knows Crowdy's been really, really, really good. It's probably the best split of his fucking career in context. Like, he actually just carried loads of games, and it's when a lot of the other ADs don't look that good, quite frankly, in LEC. He's actually looking, no joke, he's one of the best. But the other guy I don't want to give a shout out to, because I expected nothing from this guy, is the jungler Shio has been way better than I thought, mate. He's actually had some pretty decent games. I was kind of impressed.
Yeah, I will say, if you go back and you look at his decent games, almost all of them are on Wukong. And I think that Wukong is not going to be given to him in playoffs. So like, I get the feeling
in groups, you mean?
Yeah, in groups. When you get into this like the best of 3s, and teams could specifically prepare for you for the entire week, and they know Adam's champion pool, and they know to not give Wukong, and they're forcing you to play Vi and things like this, I just don't think that he's going to have the same amount of effect. It seems like he's always been better on Wukong. I know he had like a Vi stint in LFL right when the champion like started entering pro play, where he played really well, but I still think that this is going to be a big issue. He doesn't seem like one of the junglers who will be able to be meta resilient in any way.
By the way, I didn't have that much more on BDS. I thought we could move on now. Is everyone cool to move to the next team?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
but obviously we like BDS now. It's cool. And if you like us, then if you're watching the VOD, you could either like the video, you could put a comment, you could sub to the channel. If you're watching the stream and you like it, throw some fucking money this week. Give Dom all the bloody money. Give me some of your fucking rats. Thank you very much if you did. If you didn't, you rats. Right, whatever. It's sort of trapped them there. A little bit of a logic game. Right, I thought the next team, let's just talk about one of the top teams now, because I really want to get the take, quite frankly. I want to start with you, GrabbZ, because obviously I ask Dom this every week. Right, me and Dom are absolute bona fide stands for Perks. You have to understand that, right? Now, it's true.
Yeah.
There's a very good reason. He's fucking really good at League of Legends. But
Yes.
even when he's in his bad times, like I am the guy where it's like, he still does it now in all the games. Even when he does have like the 2 moments, like, oh, almost threw it there. Oh, but he lived. That's okay. It's okay. And then when he does like the flank later and he wins the game, I'm like, he knew. You could always rely on him, even though like, he does. There are a few moments he always gets. I want to know what you think of current Perks.
Better in lane than I thought he would be this year, honestly.
Okay.
He's performing better. And I don't even think it's necessarily. I mean, Bo on Vi is just perma on queuing, right? Like this guy does not like having Q on cooldown.
Yep.
But Perks for sure is playing better than I thought he would. I think in general the entire team clicked way earlier than they had any right to have. I felt like. So yeah, I'm really happy for Luca. Like he's playing pretty well. Of course, like as he tends to have, especially later games in the night. It's like 1 or 2 minutes of not thinking and just going somewhere autopilot. Okay. I think he had like 2 or 3 some crazy silent deaths.
Yeah,
where
he's
he just
just
like
old,
goes
man.
for a wave he shouldn't go.
He's old. He needs a bed. Like he has a bedtime. You know, he goes to sleep at 11:30 every night. Like this is the part of his career, like where if you give him an early game, he's gonna smurf. That's it.
Yeah. No, I think it's playing pretty well. I think he can be happy with the current how to say it, current form.
Because I actually think, by the way, like the angle that's mad, I never thought I would be seeing this of all the angles is fucking hell. It's like obviously Bo's a monster, like he probably is an MVP candidate, but like the solos in general for Vitality is really good. That top side of the map is too good, Dom. It's just too fucking good. Like I keep trying to find ways in my mind that like if they go to playoff store, then this happens, then maybe like G2 is quite. It's like Vitality should right now. Vitality should win the split.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Bo had his worst 2 games of the split, and they still won one.
They won when he absolutely fed. Yeah. It was mad, wasn't it?
I mean, Bo completely ran it in 2 games, and Perks ran it in the first game. So they had 3 people running it. The only angle I can see against Vitality, because I think Photon is like way more solid than I predicted. I thought he was going to be like I had never seen a game of him play, and my prediction was, he came from T1 Challengers, he'll probably be pretty good. That's all I said. He actually looks like the best top laner in the league, like bar none. There's no one even close to the level that Photon's on. Right now in LEC. The one angle I can see is I feel like this bot lane is a little bit sketchy. Like there's a bunch of fights where I'm expecting Neon to carry, and it just seems like he just runs it down in crucial moments. So if like Bo and Perks start having more off games like this, and they're like, they're trading off running it down, I don't know if Photon is going to be good enough to just completely carry the entire series. So we'll see. I mean, obviously we're entering a different AD carry meta. Might be beneficial to somebody like Neon. I mean, that's left to be determined, but that is the one thing that I'm worried about with Vitality. Their bot lane seem fine in lane, but they don't seem good at carrying fights that need to be carried if other people make mistakes.
What do you think, GrabbZ?
I think that's fair. I think what benefits the bot lane, just to say, is though I think they're really, really stable in the early game. Like it's not like you can attack them, right? It's on them to not carry fights. But it's not like if you camp them, like let's say the G2, you have Sama and Mickey, right? It's really hard to break them to the degree where I think you're gonna have a big lead. Which I think this is what the team needs. I agree though that Neon of course could play better in some cases, but historically he also likes as well and Jinx having more range, right? He's more of a range player. He's like a bit worse if he has to come closer to the fight. So I'm not sure. I mean, he's not a Draven player, I think. So the changes will not be that important for him. But I think the team is very balanced. Storm said Photon is playing way better than I thought he would. And then just Bo Perks, if they have a good day, is just pretty much the best mid jungle in the league.
I'm with you though, Dom. I agree. That is the one area. Because it's not like, by the way, because people are going to think this if they don't watch the games. It's not like they just mega stomp the first 15 minutes so hard every time with Bo that like the game's just over and there's no chance for Leon to do anything. It's like, what the hell? The game's already won. Like, no, he's had a bunch of times. Like even in that massive game that they almost blew against fucking Excel, like he has chances to carry late. He just doesn't do it. Like the joke is in their team, it is the solos who carry late. Like it is Photon's just like mega fed or Perks does like a clutch play, comes out of nowhere. I agree with you though. As mad as it sounds, the fact that they could actually still win that game when Bo was feeding his ass off is fucking ridiculous. Like the joke there, the obvious fucking shit joke I'll insert is, because obviously, you know, there's still the language barrier. Someone told him after his last game, that when he was fucking dominating, like, you're playing like the boss for fuck's sake. And then he thought they said the bouse, FFS, so he just actually ran it down the next game. Easy mistake to make, you know, he's trying to just understand our culture, guys. Like, give him time. No, mate, that just makes me think, like, how did they lose? You know, you have to have like 5 things go wrong for them to lose.
The XL game was the game where I was like, yeah, like Bo really ran it down. What the fuck went on? The game where he was like 0-10, actually, like in one way, I gained more respect because even when he was running it down, he was still making plays, and I really appreciate that out of a player because a lot of players that are used to being ahead, when they start getting behind, they just become nothing. They're just like, I'm just not going to do anything for the rest of the game. Just going to try to not fuck up the game further. But I like seeing somebody who's able to like get through that and still make aggressive plays. I mean, just look at the other teams, right? Like look at Excel and Fnatic. You literally have like a bunch of players there where you can say that same criticism against when the game is not going well for them, completely shut down, just don't do anything and just lose. So that wasn't like, I don't know. I know a lot of people think the sky is falling. Like immediately they're like, oh, Bo is washed. Like I'm literally seeing that after like after fucking 2 bad games, he just
you're just definitely a fan of a different team if you're saying that. That is the craziest copium I've ever heard. Like, oh, he's washed. It's that one game. It's over for him. He's not out of jungle. There's no way.
It's crazy.
No, he's cracked as fuck, mate. What are you talking about?
I mean, also, it's just when you look at his playstyle, like if you look at Bo and you tried to analyze his play, this is theoretically the worst possible meta that Bo could ever exist in, right? Like this is a Maokai Sejuani,
like Sejuani and shit. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The reason, like, what Bo is best at is, like, if you look at when he gets rank 1, he's playing fucking Graves, Talia, like, all these carry junglers. He can play the whole roster of carry junglers, Karthus, like, all these types of picks, and he can just be one of the best. Olaf, none of the champions that he's actually really good at are in the meta, and he still looks proficient.
Yes.
That's all that needs to be said.
Also, just to add, just because as a coach, I think also of the upside is, like G2 has the little Falco, right? Who was really, really good at drafting. But I also think Carter and Hyanon so far have done a good job at drafting as well. I think it's also really hard to attack them there. I think the only sus game I have in mind right now is the LeBlanc one, but that's because LeBlanc is kind of weird. Yeah.
That makes me wonder if that was a Perks pick. It's a classic champion of his, you know. Maybe he just said, fuck it, give me it, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think they're doing a really good job there as well. So the team is very solid. There's no clear weakness, I would say.
By the way, do you think that we're overhyping Bo? Because, like, put it this way, I do think he looks like look, I'll say if people don't watch LCS, the Prince guy also is very good. He was on FlyQuest now. It was like that ADC was up and coming. Right? Genuinely, I think this guy is going to be like the best import ever, mate. I think he's unbelievable. Am I overhyping him, Bo?
I think, I mean, the best ever, hard to say, but this guy just has pressure constantly. As Tom said, right? He can be 0-20 on Vi, but the D carry will still have pressure on him just because the way Bo positions and uses the spells, right? So he is really, really good, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, he definitely has the potential to be. There's nothing like if he ended up being if Bo was the best import ever in like 2 years' time, I wouldn't be like at this point. I wouldn't be like, oh, no one saw it come. Like I thought he would be good, but he wouldn't be that good. I mean, that is just what his talent level was supposed to be. Like that, and he's lived up to like what the hype is.
Yes.
It's not like he came in and he was just like a middling jungle most of the time. He had a couple like glimpses of strength, but most of the time he was just okay. He looked like one of those imports that came in and was like, no, I'm a level above the league. You're gonna have to catch up.
Yes. Plus, I'll just say there are players in the league where like the standings can deceive you, like have all different factors in the game can make you look better. The score or the eye test just checks out like a motherfucker. I'm not even joking, right? This is one of those players you could line up 50 junglers, take all the nameplates. So I guarantee I guess this guy instantly, like that. There's no chance I'm guessing someone else. Like he is so cracked, it's unbelievable. I think he's mega. Right? What about Like I said, I actually think G2's Vitality is also one that you can get through pretty quick because what's there to complain about? Even when they lost games, it was like when they were already definitely locked in and who gives a shit at that point in time? So I think now we do Mad Lions because this is another team that I will say we were both totally off on this one, GrabbZ. I actually had them as maybe like a bottom end of the playoff and group rather, both like the bad teams, but not like relevant to be a contender. And like, I think the joke is, I'm not exaggerating, the only player I actually thought would be this good was Elyoya. I thought maybe Niski had his better split last split. Like, first of all, I think Niski's having a fucking amazing split. That's mad, really good games. He's just bounced back completely from whatever happened at Worlds and playoffs. He looks great. And then the joke is everyone else looks better than I thought. Like, I didn't even know who the fuck this Chasey guy was, man. I don't watch fucking smaller leagues like that. He's having some games again. What the fucking import Korean top lane is going to do? He's way better than I thought. And then the joke is, on paper, this is why every now and then, Dom, you'll be wrong even if you do the theory craft. Even though, like, if you do the Excel theory craft, it doesn't really make much sense in some ways stylistically. But the joke is this bot lane should be the worst stylistic match ever. And it's actually good. Like, the joke now is they're not a liability. They don't even lose lane. And now Hylissang actually does stuff again. Like, almost everything's worked out. Like that. I don't know if, put it this way, the coaching staff can't be lucky. Like, they've just done it too many times now. They just must be really good.
I mean, I 100% agree. So this is the one thing that I've been throwing out to people because now like I've started like betting on games a little bit. Like I'm getting more into like the stat side of things. Like I don't normally consider it too much, but I like to just be aware of like general stats like kills per game, like deaths per game. It's crazy to me that Mad Lions with that bot lane, and I've tweeted this out and I've said it on different shows, but I just wanted to get your take on this, Thorin and GrabbZ if you haven't heard it. They average one less death than any other team in the league. They have the least deaths in the league with a Carzzy Hylissang bot lane. What is your interpretation of that? Like, doesn't that just like
here's the obvious joke? I'll make the obvious joke. You know that famous scenario, you'll know this, where you drop a piece of toast and it always flips onto the bloody side with the butter, right? Yep. That's Carzzy. But then you know also how if a cat falls out of a window, it always lands on its feet, doesn't it? That used to be the good Hylissang. So when Hylissang's playing well and you put him with Carzzy, it's like putting the piece of toast with the butter up on the back of a cat and chucking it out a window. It'll just never hit the ground. It'll keep flipping like that. It'll just infinitely create energy. And so there's your analogy. If I knew more about League, I'd probably tie it in there, but it wasn't bad. There you go. You take it from there. I've done my part, GrabbZ.
I just want to say, I think just how players interact, this is the best built roster in the LEC. Because, and not in terms of like players.
No, relative to how they work together. Yeah.
Because if any of these five says there's a fight we could take, all four will say, let's go. There's no thought behind it, just let me go.
Oh, that's the other thing about this bot lane, dude. They always follow up. They just go straight in together.
Exactly. And this is something that in the past, Matt meant really good as well. And this is also just because the title was mentioned, I undervalued Kaiser a bit, and I thought this was a split like he has to show. Because Mad was a team that back then when, like we, especially 2021 and 2022 when they won, they were just good at team fighting coming back, right? Because every team from the head is like cautious, like this fight is no, they just go. They have Rakan and Kaiser, they fly in, they fight. I have the same feeling here that they're just so on the same page. I think though it shows as well, like they can't for the life of them end the game cleanly, I feel like. If the opponent just doesn't throw themselves at them, but you can't also win against them cleanly. Like the games will always be messy because they make it so hard on every step of the way.
Yep. I mean, what I would say there is, I mean, I think XL is kind of challenging them. Like pretty much whenever a fight starts, they all just run away. Isn't that the same thing? Like that's pretty good team identity.
I mean, it could be good if you win games like this, right? But
yep. But they're drafting like Draven and Nautilus and then trying to do that, so it's a little bit anti-synergy there.
Yeah, but it's really crazy that like Carzzy and Hilly don't just perma-die. Also, compared to Carzzy, I think like one of his biggest issues was mid-game, where he likes on mid-wave, he just dies normally.
Yes.
Like back then, there was like our scouting report, if you don't know what to do, go mid against Carzzy, he will die to you. And I don't remember him dying that much this split, at least in that regard.
Oh, he's dying. He's not dying at all, really. Like he's really just not dying. Like if you look up his stats, it's actually crazy. Like this guy is insanely consistent currently.
Yeah. So credit to them, they're playing better than I thought. And they're also not relying as much as I thought on the whole Niski dropping waves and roaming. I think that's really important for them. I thought if this team would be bad, it's because they just play the early game. Niski has to drop waves, be 20 seconds behind, and they go for weird dives. But no, like he can also play the Victor and just farm up, and the team is still functional. So
I think the coolest thing about this squad now that they actually are just legit good, like if you watch them week to week, you can't hate on them. They're not winning these games by accident, like you say. They've actually got like a pretty good style. The cool thing to me is this: we were never ever supposed to be able to see this because El Yoyo was supposed to be gone. He's supposed to be off in Fnatic or something or something. So like the joke is, if you took that piece out, it'd probably still be a decent team, but they wouldn't be able to do this. Like because they managed to just keep that. I was really worried that like, oh, what if he's trapped in like an average team now? Is more of a no. Everything looks awesome, and in fact, that team actually also. This is why I know the coaching staff must be killing it. They also just look like they have, like you're saying, they have an amazing fucking like vibe in the team as well. Like everyone looks like they're just loving fucking playing League of Legends.
That's always really Mad's vibe. I feel like that's actually the superpower of Mad. When you watch all the players, like even a player could be having a horrible time in Mad, but it never actually looks like. It's like it's like Mac is the father that has unconditional love. It's like, you know what, man? Like, don't worry about it. Like we appreciate you anyway. Whereas GrabbZ has the resting bitch face where you come back and you're like, I'm gonna get
that's good. Mac is the opposite of me. Like whenever I'm mad, he's just happy. And whenever I should be happy, I'm mad. Whenever I should be mad, he's happy.
Exactly. The only problem is they are the most inappropriately named team as a result.
The Mad Lions. Okay, true.
Yeah. It's just be called like Happy-Go-Lucky Lions. It's a shit name, but you know.
The Glad Lions. Fuck it. Glad Lions. There it is.
There you go.
I mean, they're also lucky that they have players who don't care about scrims, right? Because I'm not traditional Mad. Scrims against them are always, I don't know. It's
the joke is, I've heard it's only in the scrims now that they do still the Kazi and the Hillisack shit where it's just like there's a million fucking deaths one way or the other.
So I think then also, like, for example, in that environment, I would go crazy, but if Mac can handle it, because I remember, like, in G2 back then, we were just chatting during the games, just going low in our chair, watching the games, the scrims like this at some point.
Okay.
Like, what are you going to talk about? No idea, bro. Just go next. Yeah, okay. That's how the scrims against Mad Lions for, like, 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, credit to them.
I'm not going to say GrabbZ was doing it on easy mode in G2, but they were just sitting back in their chairs, Tom, going, all right, next. Probably fuck around and win MSI or something. Yeah,
I mean, if you're 4 kills per minute in 20 minutes, then there's not much to talk about the game.
Fair enough. True. There is, yeah. Indeed. Let's do the obvious one that like people would think is going to be drama, but it's probably not going to be, which is G2. Now, look, GrabbZ already sort of seeded this by complimenting Dylan Falco earlier, so there's obviously no fucking drama there or whatever. But I have to say as well, this is actually the team. Last year, people were impressed that, you know, they got like the rookies in. So this is the team that for me, I always thought Dylan Falco was good. I just thought he needed like a few more years to get his experience. But mate, he has to be one of the best coaches in LEC. Look at all the different players he's worked with. Look how he works with youngsters. His rookies just instantly hit the ground running. It's really impressive to me. What do you think, GrabbZ?
Oh, for sure. And also, I think a good coach team also shows in early game. And I think G2 consistently has a really good early game plan. Like every game they play, it feels like they have talked before the game, or like with the champs they have. And they have a clear indication if should they innovate level 3, should they do something for level 4, should they play defensively, aggressively, where should we go through? Like there's a clear plan, it feels like. And I credit that to him, right? So I think for sure he's doing like a really, really good job. Besides the last draft, this was like kind of like a GrabbZ draft in G2.
That's a player draft. The player is just fully, you know that every single player. Oh, Kindred looks good here. Oh, pick Karma. We could flex it. Like it was just some bullshit.
Exactly.
I think the main criticism against Dylan Falco is that he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's like a master like motivator if the players are not focused. But I think that if G2 is like aware of this, they got perfect players to have a coach like that because they're all self-motivated. I think that's
Roma as well, by the way, in background staff who's smurfing. Roma was the one who was in Unicorns, like the hype guy.
Yes, the guy who dressed up with all the paint and stuff. He's the GM
but he's also like a really lots of empathy, like really good to like talk to players as well. Like the entire background staff of G2 is doing good stuff.
Yes,
like,
I will say on that guy, by the way, if people don't know, because he is one of the people that, for obvious reasons, I used to like razz on a little bit and make fun of him when he was. Because I just thought he just looked like he's a mad narcissist. I thought, is this just some guy who only cares about the cameras? And, no, there is that angle, but I will say he's also Frenchy. He's like just a flamboyant guy. But actually, if you do talk to him behind that, he actually can be a serious, quite like thoughtful person, like GrabbZ says. So there's more than meets the eye on that one, I will say.
As long as they stop doing their Star Guardian cosplays on stage, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Bro, I'm so happy that we're out of the era of people fucking writing shit on their forehead. Like
that's so dumb with it.
On stage,
you over it's like you lose anyway if you do that, mate. You lose anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fucking hard to watch for me because like I'm not like one of the biggest sticklers where I'm like players should show up to like the games in suits and be super serious all the time. But like, do we really need to be fucking writing shit on Sharpie on our foreheads before every single game? Like,
dude, that just makes it. I know that's like some cam girl shit. Like, look, guys, I'll write anything you want on my head. Like, fucking hell, this must be one of the best leagues in the world. They want someone's parents walking like this is. I thought it was a professional thing. Like,
it was so funny. Like, go check the vault today when they had the Super Star Guardian cosplays. you can see the camera pan, and you see Jankos on stage. You can just see his eyes being empty, like, get me out of here.
Of course.
Because you could see me like.
That was
I
when he
just want to
realized
leave.
that's when he realized he was getting old in the industry. He was just like,
pretty much.
what has this become? What has this become? I know.
He was
An
not
old
happy.
Polish jungler just seeing his future in his past all at once, 1,000 yards there. Thing is, though, Dom, like what he says there, which ties into the narrative, that is the thing that I'm most impressed with. Even though at the beginning of the split, everyone obviously just looked at the kills and they were like, this Yike guy is fucking busted. They made out like he was like Boar. The joke is, like, he's good, but I do think this team has done, this must be the dream to walk into as a rookie. Like he's saying, it does look like they script the players at the beginning of the game. He's just, if he's in the right spaces, he's going to benefit. Because I have to say, not only did Boar gap him, but El Yoya also was like, listen, mate, there's levels to this game here. You just understand, you're not there yet. Like, you're good, you're in a good team, but there's levels to this game of jungle.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it when they fall behind. When G2 falls behind, you don't see Yike just pulling them out of it, which is one thing that I thought Jankos was actually pretty good at. Like, he knew how to be like, there's only one way we lose this game, like, or there's only one way we win this game. We lose if we do anything else. I'm gonna like sack all my fucking camps, run here, make this play, or I have to cover this dive. Like, he was good at just doing the game-winning play. I feel like Yike is not aware of like what it takes to bring a team back when the lanes are not going amazingly. There was like one play he had recently through lane where I felt like that kind of got them back into one of the games they were losing. I think was it against Koi? I forget which team it was. It was earlier this week, but besides for that, I haven't seen him really be able to figure it out, which is fine. I mean, he's a rookie, right? Like you that's something that you develop over time. Like Jankos was never good at that when he was a rookie either, right?
True.
Like it just is what it is. But that's the part that you want to see growth on if you're going to start calling him like the best jungler in LEC and stuff like that.
No, I'm with you. Like on that one, I would just say this: like Jankos at this point in time, he's just a master at his fucking craft of juggling. Like you say, he reads the game so well. Like, it's actually why I was going to bring this up later on, but fuck it, let's do it now. Because I've sort of dropped all the clues, Dom, through the weeks about Jankos and what could happen. So I'm just going to say it right now. What people haven't put together is this detail, Dom. Do you remember in the offseason, right at the beginning of the offseason, there was that big drama where they were supposed to, like, buy fucking El Yoya to G2 for like 1 million or something, or 1.1, and then like Mad Lions was saying no, and then Jankos was going to go elsewhere. And at the time, the buyout for Jankos was crazy. It was like 1.x million. Like put anything in the X, that's crazy anyway, right? But you think it's Jankos, right? What I've heard is this, Dom, if you put it all together, and this is why it's actually brutal, because I think right now Jankos is still really good in his team, which isn't always winning. He is still able to do a lot of these things, cover the map, cover for a player, find the right player to maybe match someone. I think it's so sad because I'll say it like this. I've known a lot of the behind the scenes of some of the other G2 ones. I know Carlos and some of the other people. So sometimes it wasn't always G2 being the dick. They weren't always the one trying to sell to the bad team or limit who you could go to. Sometimes it was just like the other team came like, yeah, can we have this really like top player that just won all the shit? Yeah, sure. There's 250k. It's like, what's more than that, bro? Sometimes it was like that. And then sometimes the other team was pretending like, he's just trapping them. He won't let him out. This one right now, Dom, I'm going to say it right now. G2 fucked Jankos in this offseason because I've heard that they kept that beginning part of the crazy buyout. They made it sound like that was the ultimatum. Like, unless you can meet this, like, and even the minimum I've heard was like a big buyout. Unless you can meet that, we're just not budging. And they made it seem to all these teams, like, essentially, you can't afford him. And then here's my problem. Like I said last week, or whatever it was, like, now I've heard the buyout was super low 6 figures. And I've heard even what he went for was way lower than what the original asking price was. So I'm sorry, I've got to say, in that scenario, bear in mind, G2 wants to make money in theory. The one thing I always said about the other deals, go look it up, the Wonder deal, the records, they did get their money. They actually did get the money that roughly they were asking for. So you can at least justify like that. Well, it's business, bro. You know, I had to get the money for make up for him, buy new play. No. In this one, they got less money. And as far as I can tell, Dom, I think they just did it for real to put him on a shit team. I think they were already going to let him go, based on what I've heard, to teams like Heretics, fucking BDS. I mean, I know now they're good, but at the time, no one thought they were good. SK. I think they only wanted them to go to a bottom team. I don't think they wanted to let him go to a Fnatic, a top team, though. I actually think they fucked him. And I'll tie this into what I saw Reckless say on stream, even though he meant it jokingly. Like, you know, why did they sort of like crown Reckless when he came back? It's like, bro, you know, I'm like really good as well. Like, how much does fucking Jankos won all these years? Like, what are we doing? Yeah, Reckless won in 2018, for fuck's sake. Like, I do think in a mad way, everyone's like disrespected Jankos this offseason.
Oh, definitely. And it's so sad to see how he has to play in Heretics. He can have the best game ever. Like, if you look at that fucking game,
man.
The Juani game was just insane. He gives Evie everything on a silver platter. Like, here's 3 kills. Like, you're ahead. Like, we've got first Herald, first Drake. What more do you want from a fucking jungler? What else could you want if you were laning from a jungler. Like that feels better to play with than anything else. It's not like Jankos was coming, but he was taking all the kills and the resources were on him. He gave the kills to everyone else. He made sure everyone was in stable positions, and they couldn't fucking win the game anyway. Like such a sad use of Jankos' talents.
Yes, because put it this way. Oh, sorry. No, maybe you were going to say the same thing. Every time I watch him play now, I think, bro, imagine he's on. Look, Excel would be bad anyway, but they might be better. Fnatic's the obvious one. Imagine if he was on that team, it'd be a totally different squad.
Yeah, all those players, like that's the type of player. Well, I don't think he would ever play on the team with Reckless. You can even hear when he's talking about like the Fnatic thing, like he's trying to keep it civil, but you can tell that he just didn't like play with Reckless, and everyone behind the scenes know that like the main thing was that Caps and Jankos did not want to play with Reckless in G2 going into the next year. So it is what it is. Like he's just good when he's better when he plays around good laners. If you're a good laner, if you're a top tier laner and somebody just hand feeds you 3 kills, game's over. You just won the whole fucking game alone.
Yes.
Like you're up thousands of gold. You get turrets. You rotate. You're first on every play. It's so easy to play like that, and his laners are just not able to use the resources that he gives them.
I'll throw this in as well, just a provocative statement, and GrabbZ can take it. I also think, for real, the reason why the Fnatic one would have been fun, I think he's one of the only people who might be able to sort of like fucking protect Humanoid essentially from himself. Like he actually might be able to sort of shadow him, GrabbZ, and sort of like nobody's going to fucking go in stupidly or like. I think he's the only one I think could save him, because at the moment Humanoid just looks like a lost cause. What do you think of this Jankos angle though? What do you think of him currently then?
I mean, he is playing really, really good. As Dom said, like not waste of talent, that sounds a bit too harsh, but the teammates he has don't let him be the player he can be, and even in that environment he's still shining. So that's sad for him. Without confirming on the numbers you mentioned, of course, because obvious reasons. Just to put in context for fans, because I don't think they know it, the number that allegedly has been asked for is more than half of the functional budget for some teams of the entire year, including Academy. So basically, you're telling the teams in the league, you can have Jankos, but you have to pay 60% of the entire budget of your entire operation of League of Legends for him only, which means basically they can't get other players, right? So no team can actually afford. It's not about, because we talk about often teams that are ambitious, right? But it's still a business. These numbers are not normal. Like they are not feasible in the current structure of the league, and G2 knows it.
Yes.
So no team can go for him because they would completely fuck the entire operations.
To me, those numbers only made sense if they were selling to LCS. Then you could maybe get that,
or LPL if Chinese team wants it, right?
Yes.
But so we don't just talk about the number; it's important to talk about it in the context of the league and the health of the league, right? So even if the team wants to win, still every shareholder would say, "No, you're not doing this because it's way too expensive. There's no way this is worth it." So that's why it's so bad, because G2 should know this because they're also in the league, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you could. I mean, Jankos even confirmed this like on his stream. He's like, I think it's like really hard for me to like find teams, like, like I mean, he was just giving all the hints to tell you that this is the situation, that the reason why it's hard for him to find teams is not because he's a fucking bad player. He's the GOAT EU jungler by far. Yeah. No one's even close. The reason it's hard for him to find teams is because he just has, the one of those huge buyouts, which sucks for him. Definitely sucks. Yeah.
One thing I will say, though, just last thing on G2 from me is just this. What I love is that at their hearts, no matter how good they are, when they're at their peak, Hylissang and Mickey X, even at their peak, they are just like that old, like, that Bible verse that's like, God giveth and God taketh away. That is, Mickey X will always be that guy, mate, because even though he's had some mad Smurf games, he still has those games like this week where it's just like, you know what? I'm sending it, like, it's going out like that. You're like, oh, what the fuck? Like that Tilly games, like, what are you even doing? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, even the Heimer game where he got praised, but he was level 5 at 40 minutes in, like, that's not a good way to play the game, my bro. And he knows it as well, but I mean, I'm biased, of course, right? I played against Hilly with Mickey for like 4 years, and it was the most banger games of the entire split. But these are the players you need to win.
Yes.
Also, especially if you want to win the World Championship or be good there, you need a player like Mickey as support. You can't just have any player who happens to not end. That doesn't cut it. And
by the way,
especially saying that like champs like Rakan and Pyke, where both of them are really, really good, and the pressure, like the same we talked about pressure and Bo, they do the same thing on Rakan. Like playing against Hilly Rakan is the most stressful thing you can have on stage. It's so super, super hard, but not even meta. So if they would shift, they get even better, those two.
Yes. One thing I would say, though, is this, which is, I thought a very interesting thing Perk said when I did my reflections of the offseason with him was, right, what people don't know about Mickey X, I knew this from like DMing him in the past, but he actually gets away with seeming like the most innocent guy in all those interviews and streams. Like, oh, hey guys, yeah, Perks is doing pretty well. Like, he seems just he's mad arrogant, but in a good way. Like, he knows absolutely how good he is, and he is the guy who's like, give me this shit, and I'm going in.
He's also a super like funny motherfucker. He's like a very like sarcastic, like just hilarious guy.
What do you say, GrabbZ?
Oh no, all of the roster back then is the same. Like publicly, maybe like, oh, they're fine, and then the cameras are off. They're so fucking dog shit. Why am I saying this?
Okay, there you go.
So it was always fun.
No, the joke is, here's my joke, right? That's how you know G2 had actually ascended and you guys were like beyond even the West, because you guys started doing what all the top Asian teams do. You know, whenever Worlds comes, they're all like, you know what? Let's all just have a lie. I think all these Western players are pretty good, and that Western top lane, he's not bad actually. I think actually maybe Reckless is as good as us. Like, they just always do. They always do that to condescend to fans, because idiot fans like, delicious. Oh, that's Bjergsen as good as Faye Crazy. Oh, and then they're laughing at you when the fucking camera goes off, guys. They don't really believe that shit. They just think like, may as well just get some free fans. There's no downside, is there? It's not a lie.
Exactly.
So even G2 was doing that apparently. Like, yeah, no, we respect the rest of the league, and you know, it's going to be a hard game against Schalke this week. You know, like, who gives a shit? Exactly. It's like, bro, we won MSI. Who gives a shit? Fuck you.
Kinda. No, it wasn't that bad. Like, we weren't disrespectful towards opponents, but at the same time, you wouldn't praise them either, right?
Yes.
But you don't broadcast to say, oh, they're playing better now. It's impressive. They're like, yeah, they're just another team, which is fine.
And by the way, you know, obviously, because everyone was bigging up fucking Yankos, he was on the cast this week, blah, blah, blah. Like, spoiler, what did you think, you moron? He has really good English. He streamed. And he, like I said, he's a fucking genius of his role. Oh, you thought he wasn't going to know what's going on. That was obvious to me he was going to be good. But what it reminded me of, because I saw someone linked it, is one of the reasons by the way, I'll tell you right now, the reason they have that limit of like 15 minutes on the cast, you don't do the whole game. Because you remember when Perks went on, and he was just doing something like, oh, he's fucked up his flash. It's like, bro, we're live right now. Like, it's Riot Games. We're not like CSGO. So we're like, what are you doing? He's just like, calm it down. Like, come on.
The best thing about the Perks cast was that he just like hostaged the whole thing, and he's like, you are going to listen to me now talk about how dog shit Yuumi is. Get it out of the game. No one likes it. It ruins everything. Like, he just like literally just took the mic and just started going off of them. Like, I'm not giving back the LEC. Like, started making demands. He just became like the first esports terrorist, like on the broadcast and everything. It was just, it was insane to me. I loved it.
Oh, whatever. He earned it. Fair play. Right. Here's what we're doing. If you notice, I'm sort of bouncing between teams right now, right? This is one where GrabbZ, I feel like so much can be said, but this is a bad team right now. It's got to be Koi. Like, all I can say for Koi to start this off is this. You're just lucky fucking Fnatic and Excel exist, mate. Otherwise, you yourselves would have been like in a few of these games, like, you know, we don't think, I'm a bit peppy swell, like, monk ass. Like, mate, this team, like, it's like, the joke is, it's just that Excel's a worse version of them, so they get to go through the groups. Now, what's mad is, I will say as the last thing, I do think, bearing in mind some of the players, like, they probably are a team that'll probably actually not be that bad in like the BO3 format and using like proper drafts. That'll maybe help, but it still hasn't looked good. Like, even their best games were just against the trash teams. You know what I mean? They never really had like a mega game that made you think this team. Their lineups never come together for me. Where are you at on this team, GrabbZ?
I think one thing I want to say is that for some reason the summer playoffs erased the entire 4 weeks before that, where Rogue looked really shaky. Rogue looked really bad going into playoffs. The entire style of Marang also back then did not work. And then suddenly, I mean, they had good playoffs to the surprise of everyone, I think. Like, no one had them on the list. And now suddenly this was like this most insane jungler in the LEC, and this team is winning every lane. And Rogue generally always relied on having scaling picks and still winning lanes, right? That was Rogue's style of drafting.
Yep.
And as soon as your players, for whatever reason, don't get to the same spot being ahead on the scaling draft, it's hard to adapt because you're used to being in that spot, right? So, like Larsen still on Azir, bot, I mean, of course, it's also the scaling range meta, right? It's not like they're doing something specific, but for one reason or another, it's just laning, I think. They're just not on the same spot they were before, so they can't take the same fights as before. But this is reminiscent of, I think, the later weeks in summer they had.
Oh, when they have the downturn, he means. Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Dom? Where are you? Here's the thing. Obviously, you know this. When you do as much content as work as we do, we don't have time to watch other people's shorts unless someone like links a clip. Essentially, I'm just talking to you for the first time in a week about these things. I've got to guess you still don't enjoy watching Koi play. Like, they're not really. There's nothing exciting, is there?
Yeah, there's nothing exciting. And then also, my biggest fear, I said this in week 1, my biggest fear was that they were going to turn Sagenda into just a bad version of IWillDominate, where they just start playing him on the IWillDominate champs. He's just on Gnar, he's on fucking Cassante, he's on Orin, Renekton, he's just weak side, and they're just a worse version of, like, it's just all the things that Sagenda is supposed to be really good at. The split pushing, playing these carries was just completely eliminated from his game, and it feels like this is now what we're seeing with Koi. I don't know if it was just desperation to make this, where they were like, this is a band-aid fix, so we make the next round, and then in the next round we're gonna like really go back to what we think is the strongest identity of you know our team with our 5 players right now. But yeah, we're just having this they're playing the same way they did. They just have a player that's less suited for it. And then the thing that's strange to me is just how the bot lane is playing in lane, mainly from comp. Like when I look at them, they were really good at these champions before. I mean, Comp said he was sick this week, but I mean, even before he was sick, he was playing the same way. There was that fight versus G2 where everyone was like bigging up Hansama, and I've talked about this like multiple times now, but the fight where everyone's bigging up Hansama, like he dodged all his skill shot. It's like Comp didn't ult as Zeri in a fight.
It's mental, isn't it?
He forgot to ult, bro. Like that's the only explanation. He just forgot to ult in a team fight. Maybe he clicked it while he was CC'd and he thought it was on and it wasn't.
Right.
But like after, you can literally see like Trimby like grab him, like Comp just goes like, oh my god, and then like they have the realization afterwards. They're like, wait, my fucking ult is up. I didn't ult in the team fight. And
that game was over anyways, right? That game was lost at that point.
Yeah, but I feel like that just seeing that is just like, bro, where are you at right now?
Oh, fair.
To not notice that, because there was times within the fight where normally, like, if a lot of shit is popping off in like a small period of time, then I could see you forgetting for that period. But then there's like a small like break in the fight where there's like a small reset where there's people that are not jumping on him directly, where you think he'd be able to reorient himself and then be like, oh shit, I gotta like ult to kill the Kalista, but he just didn't do it. That was super strange to me to watch, because I think Comp is a good player, and this is his meta, right? Like, this is a meta that he was really good in. He was probably like one of the best Lucians in NA. You know, his Zeri was really good. Range supports cater to Trimby's playstyle. He's probably one of the better range support players in NA. If we're struggling in this meta as Koi, when we jump back into the Nautilus, Leona, Rakan, like if that meta actually comes, if that ends up being the meta that we get in 13.3, I don't know how this team is going to be a top team. Like, I don't see where their advantage comes over teams like Mad Lions that are outperforming you right now. And this is what you'd expect would be the worst meta for a team like that.
Yes, I have a take along those lines, actually, because I was going to say the same thing. If you look at the way the team's going, right, now that we know Sagenda isn't going to be like a carry top and they can't just play through him, right, that means they're back to the old formula, which is like Larson farms up, so he's just going to do that. He's just always going to be heading CS, get his picks, and then bot lane's supposed to be like the pressure lane in that scenario. Like, you're supposed to have one of the best bot lanes in the league, and that's GrabbZ. You're not even winning lanes much. Like, you're not even getting ahead. In this scenario, by the way, here's a terrible sign. Everyone's just giving this fucker Zeri. Like, people in theory, if they'd have actually somehow won that game, would have been flaming G2 for like, what are they giving him that bot lane for? Like, now you see why. I'll bet in scrims the fucking probably play at this as well. Because here's the problem, right? Obviously, you know, I already got out my system. I hard flamed the fuck out of Sagenda on a past episode and basically told him, like, you ain't IWillDominate, you're never going to be. And quite frankly, you're a bust right now. But the actual knock-on of that is, now you see that Comp's not that good. I don't think it's just that he was never that good. But I'll tell you this. I always say this about two players, right? It's actually not the player himself in his play and what he does that you want them for. Impact and fucking IWillDominate, if you are an ADC who likes to scale and play team fights, are your dream to play with. IWillDominate is going to be tanking all that shit, making space for you. Like, mate, when you take a player like that out of the mix, it just makes it's like an aura effect that some other players are just going to get weak. It's going to make their game harder. And quite frankly, Comp hasn't adjusted to it, because let's be real, the last few weeks, like Trimby actually started to get his shit together. Like, the Ash game was fucking banging. Like, he's had some good moments. Go on, GrabbZ.
Yeah, so here's the weird part about the whole, like, you're right, with Adam and Impact, but they make space by being a tank, right? But the reason they put in Sagenda was you can also make space being a threat. Because if he's on a square and his camility played, Comp also would have more free time to hit because they have to deal with him, right? But they don't let them play that. But as Dom said, right, it's just the weird part. I just checked because I don't want to talk out my ass, right? But he has 16 Gwen games, 14 GP, 10 Camille, 10 Akali, 9 Camille, 5 Jays, 5 Fiora. So he's a carry player, right?
Yes.
And that's nothing of that this season. So you have a player.
They played it, they lost, and then they gave up. It was like one Jax game. It was one Jax game where he was mega ahead. It was like a Fiora game where he did nothing, and then they went away with it. They went away from it with just like 3 games. Yeah.
And especially on the carry top part, is like a player like this needs confidence, and you can't build confidence if you don't trust him to do it, right? Yes. And especially now, if you go away, as Storm said, after one loss, there's no way he comes back from that. Because on stage, he will know, as soon as I fuck up, I go back to playing fucking Ornn or whatever. right? So it's just weird. I don't know what happened there. Could also be, though, to be fair, that a transition between orgs is always hard. So we don't know backstage, like behind the scenes, what happens with the whole staff, who's helping out. Is the management still as attached as before, right? All the stuff can make a team worse for sure.
I want to throw one last detail in there because we never do this. Like the joke about Freddy122 is when the team was probably like underrated, no one mentioned him and gave him credit. But then when they do badly, no one mentions him either. He's that kid. It's funny, he's actually British because this is what it's like in British culture, right? There's a famous thing in class in school, which is if you sort of like don't do your homework and you don't really want to like have the teacher pick on you, you sit at the back, you just shut the fuck up. You sit like this. You sit like they did against fucking whatever Hillside. I don't know, the Mad Lions. You sit like G2 in 2019 against the Mad Lions stuff. You just sit down. You don't make any sound and you just hope no one scores. Hey, you at the back, come to the front. You just do that, right? But the problem I have with this is, right, he's now had these players. Think about this. You had Finn, who's like a sort of like coin flip carry player on his right picks and maybe not that good at weak. Wait, let's be real. He's not that good at weak side and tanks. Then in the middle, you had Odoam there. Probably the best European weak side player ever, fucking top lane. Although shout out Soaz, he should deserve honorable mention. Yeah, but Wonder used to even do it with carries though. Like I thought he had his own unique style. You know, he wasn't just a tank. You know, like,
yeah. True,
and then now he's got Shizgenda. So he's had two players, by the way, who could be played through. And in other teams like in Astralis, they will try and play through Finn all the time. And I just think if you look at the teams, this is just Freddy122's vision of the game. I think he just likes scaling. He likes just like safer fucking just farm up, just have the mid in the ADC, get the work done. And I think he doesn't believe in like carry top mentality. Let's be real. In the West, we don't do it much. It's not the LPL. Because the thing is, when I look at it, it was even the same with Odoam there. Odoam there would have like one good game on like a Jace or a Renekton. And then they'd just be like, if it goes bad next game, look, nah, you're off that. Like, you're never going back to that again. Like, I just get the sense like the coaching staff maybe just doesn't see top lane the same way because they've had the players to potentially hard push that angle and it doesn't seem like they want to. It seems like they have they're another coaching staff where I feel like their vision of the game is very similar no matter what the players are, you know. Just speculation.
Well, but also, just put my 2 cents, they have to bite off the players because Rogue, now Koi, for the longest time was the only team in entire Europe, my teams included, that actually played scrims well.
Everyone used to say it was the favorite team to play against.
And for that, you need the players who also believe in that vision, right? So it could have been a thing that Freddy imposes on them. It could be that the team naturally agrees to it. That's where they're so good at it. So it's hard to say who, like the chicken or the egg, right? Which was first.
Yes.
But if the coach wants to play this way and the players, it's also really hard to break out of it, right? Because the same reason as with Shigenda, imagine they go to like the scrims this week, guys are playing LeBlanc, Lee, we're gonna like play, I mean, of course not the champions, right? But play early game, they lose one game. You know what, we tried, guys. We tried. Let's go back to scaling.
Yes.
That's just how it's gonna go.
And by the way, I definitely agreed with the point you said there. If you are someone whose whole game is like, I'm a carry top, it can't be like you're saying, where it's like, this reminds me of, this happens to people in sports where you can be subbed in and out. Like, you know, it's like in football, right? If I'm like, I'll give you a perfect example, GrabbZ. Say I'm some like young up and coming, like really sick attacking winger, right? And then I have a couple of times I fuck up and lose the ball. And I know the second I do that, you're pulling me out the game and I get replaced by like, you know, just a whole midfield. Yeah. I'm never going to have the confidence to do it. Like, I'm just going to I'm not even going to play my style anymore because now I'm going to try and stay in the team, aren't I?
Yeah, as an example, because I mean, football right is also my thing. Guardiola, like probably the tactical best coach in the world right now, says openly that he structures the build up, the beginning of the attack phase. Towards the last third, the players can do what they want, basically. Like he puts them where he wants them, but they have freedom to express themselves, which is really important. It's the same in League of Legends. Like, of course, you can't be like brain dead all the time. But as a coach, you have to like reinforce them, saying, you know what, you went for the idea, it didn't work out this time, but the idea was good. You know, do it again. So you need that. So if you try to play carries and you get replaced instantly, or like you get swapped back to like now duty, then there's no way of improving either.
Yeah. Right. What about this then? There are a couple of teams we can knock off. They're not going to be in the next stage really quickly. I don't feel like we need... Maybe GrabbZ has an angle on Excel, but aside from that, I feel like Excel is Astralis. We just knock out the park quick, Dom. Because, like, let's be real, there's not that much update to give. So, give me your take, GrabbZ. You were saying something before we started the show when I was just waiting for Dom to come back. Basically, you had the similar perspective to Dom, actually, in the offseason, which is the problem is just stylistically, the team's a bit of a mess. Like, even before we knew the players would play bad, now all these... You could just... To you, it didn't even make sense as a roster.
I just think that individually they're all good players. I think like Xerxes gets flamed too much. I think he's playing fine, but there's no player who's willing to go forward and create, as we talked about earlier, space in the draft or in the game, right? You have 5 players who are like willing to play safe and scale up, which means basically you start pressure-wise on 0-0-0, and the enemy team has a strength that they play through. So you're always uphill, basically, on the game. I remember like drafts where Zerx was playing Elise, I think, the one game, and he had 3 losing lanes and just tried to invade just to find a jungler and make him useless. But this is like a very, very like thin road to walk on. And then Zerx gets flamed because it doesn't work, right? While he has 3 losing lanes to try to scale up. And then also
what type of team should he be in to shine, do you think? What style of a team? Is there a team in the league you'd put him in now and he'd be good?
I mean, basically, it sounds simple, right? But you just actually in league need one lane at least who tries to win early. That's all you need, because you can make it consistent in scrims. You can work towards it. You can make it your weapon basically in the early, and the others can scale. Like, of course, you can say in best of 5s to get predictable, but it's still possible. And I think like you have 5 good players who are naturally very quiet in game, from what I heard. I can't confirm 100%, but I heard that all 5 of them are not the ones who like a Jankos or Perks who will talk through the early game. And then you have 5 players who want to scale. So you have a mute early game with no pressure on the map. And then if you get to a team fight, as we saw like the last game against Vitality, where they somehow got to the stages, they look quite competent. Like they know how to behave in fights, right? To a certain degree. But just getting to that part is really hard. So I think just someone needs to take the reins and say, you know what, it's not comfortable for me, but I need to like be the one to try to win. The early game at least. Because if you think back to like VFU and Misfits, right? Misfits in general was just a team that relied on teams being too bad to finish.
Yep.
So they played a double scaling mid bot. And VFU's from there, like he's a good scaler, but he doesn't win lanes necessarily. Patrick, I mean, I guess Mickey was the part that tried to win the lanes, or Targa Masters was having a bad year. I don't know. And Odam, as you said, is a good Bigsa player, right? So where do you go through? It has to be Patrick or VFU. One of those two has to like step it up or try to be a different player a bit.
I mean, I think the main thing that I see when I look at this team is that they are just delusional. Like they have no idea who they are as players. Like, because I think this is all obvious from the outside. They have 5 mute players who like to scale up. Okay, so why are we playing Draven Nautilus? Isn't that just like the worst possible combo that you could
and they
play?
Played Yasuo. They have some bad picks
they're
this
playing
season.
like Patrick's playing Yasuo. Then the next game, I mean, this is I guess after they're like, I mean, the Yasuo game. I don't think they were they technically eliminated yet on the Yasuo game? I don't think they were technically eliminated yet. They could have got to 3 wins, so they're not even technically eliminated on that. And then the last game, obviously they're technically eliminated. They play like this Pike lane. Wait, if you guys are the scaling team and that's the strength of your team, and everyone knows it, bro, it's no fucking secret that this team is going to be like a pretty inactive early game team. They're going to be pretty quiet. If that's your team, then why are you trying to be somebody you're not? I hate seeing this level of delusion. Like, I don't know who's giving them the ability to pick like this on stage, or who's feeding into these thoughts. But like, if you're the coach, you have to figure out what the strength is of your team and play towards that and pick towards it. And it feels like they just had no idea who they were the entire split. They're like, oh, I thought we were all good players. Why are we losing? It's like they don't even believe what the narratives are about themselves. They just think that there's somebody else. But realistically, anyone could see this coming, that they were going to be a relatively slow team. They're going to be inactive. That might be still good enough to do well, right? Like they could have done well with that style, but it wasn't going to be G2. It wasn't going to be them coming out and just stomping people and just shitting down their throat. Like they were going to actually have to grind it out. They're going to have to play these long grinded out games and use the fact that they have good team fighting later on. They know how to structure team fights. They understand how to peel well. That was going to have to be the strength that came through. And it just didn't seem like they were able to buy into that style, or they even believed that that was what their strengths were.
Yeah, and also just to help that narrative, that thought process behind with stats, right? VFU played a different champ every game. Targa must played 8 different champions. Yep. Which is really good if you're winning a team, because it's diversity. But if you're losing a team, that just means that you have no clear idea how the approach should be in the game as a team. That's just all it says, basically. So, especially then, a player like VFU will say, okay, we lost, I want to try something else. So there needs to be a voice in the team, a player or coaching staff or management, whoever, to like give a direction to go to, right?
Yes.
And I think that was missing, the split.
Exactly. This guy just fucking gives up on champions quicker than fucking Nice. Whatever, just thought I'd draw that. See if anyone knew the reference. Just trying to be I knew that reference. Thorin is down with the kids. Like, so here's the thing though. I'll say,
like 70 years old, bro. I don't know if you're down with the kids. If you're
mate, he looks like a fucking grape that was left out in the sun. He's fucking with it.
Geez, so, I wasn't gonna go that.
Whatever. Mate, he probably needs the 350 for fucking skin cream.
Jesus, man. Why
he
do you
needs
play
some
that?
moisture. He needs some fucking moisture. He's a very salty individual as well. So, the balance of the salt, the osmosis, whatever. You get the point. Right. So
We let
I can
Thorin
go all
keep
day,
that one.
mate.
GrabbZ, don't say anything. Just let it. Just let
Exactly.
Thorin go
Yeah.
off.
Just let me
No
cook. Let me
responsibility
cook.
for any of this.
Let me cook. Although the problem is he's already cooked. He's probably been in the fucking California sun. He's like one of those raisins back in the day that used to be on commercials and that. That's a bad reference. Whatever. He knows though. He was about 45 at the time. Right. Here's the thing. Just because you were really good at Pong doesn't mean you're going to be good at League of Legends Nice. Like, it's not worth the $350. That might be going into Social Security, though, to be fair. So,
Who let Thorin cook?
All right.
That's my question.
Okay, we're calm. Everyone back
Just
to
had
League
to
of
get that
Legends.
out. Just had
I
to
know.
personally roast.
Whatever. Like,
All right.
Nice was never an option. You have to understand, right? So here's the thing, like all the good coaches, right? What I'm going to say about Excel is this, though. I totally agree with the point GrabbZ said, because here's what sucks so much, in my opinion. One, let's all just calm down about that Vitality game. One, the game lasted forever. That's longer than episodes of Netflix shows, mate. Then two, Vitality already had locked up the league, basically, and Excel was out. So I'm sorry, if you know anything about competition, that is the least meaningful result ever. Because the joke is, Excel, actually, some of them are probably playing for their job, potentially, and Vitality doesn't give a flying fuck and still could have won the game. And then the last thing is, I thought the Tag Abbas point was a very key thing, because I've been reaching out to people. I said I would do this when Excel went to shit at the beginning. Coaches and people who've played with them, to try and find out, like, what do people actually like these guys and know their strengths? What do they think? And here's what I was told about Tag Abbas. They said, look, he did have some of these issues in lane in past teams, and sometimes the team would be built around. But they said half of his problem is that right now he desperately needs it to go back into like the fucking Rakan, the Pike. That needs to be the meta, and then he might have a chance, right? Well, as you said, GrabbZ, he only played the Pike at the end, right? As you said, I'll read it out. Here's the champions he played this split. He played Jhin, Nami, Karma, Yuumi, Nami, Nautilus, Braum, Senna, and then lastly the Pike. So the only double up, by the way, was he played 2 games of Nami, which, by the way, those were abomination as well. So, like, mate, this guy it looks like he's just lost completely. Like you say, Dom, his identity as a player. Because in that scenario, by the way, here's what you do. Think about what GrabbZ said about players earlier when you have... If you get like halfway into the split and it's not working, you're still just reaching for the next champion and it's just not working. At that point in time, it might even be worth just saying, fuck the meta. Like, let's just force a Pike pick. Let's just make one happen if that's all that we can make it. Especially if, like you say, the main thing is they never get anything going early. Like, I might have just said, fuck it, Band-Aid time. Let's just try something crazy. They tried it when they were out already. Like, that's just a bit whack to me. Because that implies they still, either they believed or they didn't care. They just kept cycling champions. That's a bit whack to me. I do have hopes if maybe he can come back in a different meta, but this was a really bad fucking showing from him, this 3-week period or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, no one comes out of this even looking like, sir. I mean, they should. It was so bad that a lot of them are going to be like worried about their job security. I mean, this was things. It would be crazy to imagine like Odo or Vedia or like any of these players out of the LEC. But when you have a performance like this, I mean, you start being worried about like, are they going to still maintain? Or like, are they going to play split in ERL or what's actually going to happen? Especially when the confidence drops like this. I mean, everyone just looked pretty much as bad as you could imagine them looking.
Yes.
Also, one thing to note here, because I mean, of course, we have to go to each player individually, right? But what fans especially forget is that in a team, if you're losing, and at some point, and it will also be important for Fnatic later on, that if your teammates cannot carry you physically, you will make mistakes in laning phase. I know that Odoamne got solo killed a lot. He has a KD of 1.3. But I think he was the best performing player of Excel.
He was.
Because he tried to make things happen, right?
Yep.
He went out and he tried and he said, okay, my team can't carry me for whatever reason. Not because they're bad, but maybe, I don't know, mood is bad, right? So let me be the person to try to make a difference. He tried, it didn't work out. But that you can, like, in theory, say for every player, right?
Yes.
So it's really hard to judge in a losing team what to do.
Yes.
So it's not like we're not trying to sit here and say they should just do this. It's so easy, right? It is hard to find something in that regard, but it just shows that they had no actual game plan coming in. I also know for a fact that, again, this is important, in the background, stuff wasn't ready, for example, right? The office and stuff. The atmosphere is not great either. So if you come into a team where it seems like the transition got unfinished, like from an old office to a new one, and then you start losing, like you feel uncomfortable going to practice. In practice, you lose all the time. You get beaten down 0-5 and you go home. Then this happens on stage.
Well, speaking of teams where everything went to shit, the org's a disgrace. The off-season moves were an absolute abomination. How about Fnatic, eh? Remember that old team? I know I'm old, Dom. I'm really old, right? Because I still remember when Fnatic used to make playoffs, you know. I remember when Reckless used to be a top player. I remember when they used to have MVP candidates. They even used to have junglers that seemed like they knew what they were doing. They used to have mid laners that won lane. Oh, man, I'm so itchy at this point in time. I got to connect with like the new era of... Oh, sorry, that's the last 3 weeks. My bad. Because, mate, the joke is... Obviously, all those people were trying to counter our narratives about upset in the fucking playoffs last year, Dom. It's like, I rest my case. I fucking rest my... Mate, if he walked in tomorrow, you'd say, yes, of course you would. This is mental. Like, this team has looked so whack. Like, let's be real. What's funny is, they won so few games. They had a couple that were like throws, but if you see how they play, they're just a shit team. Like, they're the ones that deserve the throws. You know what I mean? Like, they were going to throw these games. Like, it's actually mental to me, like as bad as the Excel one is, because like here's the problem. Here's why this is worse. In a way, Fnatic is worse than Excel, because the Excel one was 5 players who hadn't played together. Look, obviously I don't have name and fucking
no, they played together in like season 8. They played together.
Yeah,
5 years ago.
exactly.
It matters. It actually matters.
But like,
for example.
But Fnatic kept the core. Brought in the Rooks guy that every fucker watching the stream now was like, because they love doing this at Worlds. If someone subs and you play half decent and lost, they're like, he should be in the main team. Or like that Bean guy. You remember where he was signed to an LEC? Oh, he did it. He wasn't ever because no one wanted him.
I mean,
the Rooks guy's bossed.
It got Evie a job. It got Evie a job within the LEC.
That's true.
So, you know,
yes.
The world hype is real, man. It carries people hard.
But the idea, like the joke of this team for real is this, Dom. If in the offseason I had a whiteboard and we're figuring out like Fnatic, right? Main problems in the team, best things about the team to keep. I'm not joking. My top 2 things to keep about the team go in this order. Upset as ADC, Yamato Cannon as coach. Because I'll notice the people who are never getting any shade for this performance is the coaching staff. Fnatic fans don't even seem to know that. Oh, you do, but I mean, Fnatic fans don't even seem to know they exist. Dude, they used to flame Yamato for winning series and giving Yumi over. Like, these motherfuckers look worse than any version of Fnatic ever. Way shitter version than last split. And they don't even have him to do like some interesting draft move or band-aid a player or do. They don't have any of that. So I think they've literally kept all the problems. Razork humanoid, non-existent synergy. Humanoid just genuinely doesn't look like he gives a flying fuck in the regular split. Like, Wonder literally is just capped. He can't play the game. He can't ever fucking flex a pick. He doesn't even get to carry half the time. It's a fucking joke. And then the Rooks guy, the joke is this. Yeah, he looked good in the first couple of games, right? All he is now is kind of a whack, like fucking like Leona type player, right? You just gave away one of the best Leona type players of all time, and he's turned it around in Hillsang. Like, you failed at every. You know what? If I'm giving you marks, you get a fucking X on everything at the bottom. It just says "See me after class," and I'll beat the shit out of you. Well, no teacher would be able to say that. But if I was, good job, I'm not a teacher in him, anyways. You know, I'm not. So I never went the nice route. I just stayed on stream. So what do y'all guys take on Fnatic? Come on,
go first, Dom, please.
I mean, I think it's really weird because what Reckless fans will do to you is they'll blame Rux, right? And if you try to push back, they'll say, oh, well, Rux was more of the problem than Reckless. But then they'll like ignore the part that Reckless was hyped up as one of the GOAT 80 carries. Like, he has a different standard of play than Rux. And that's
what a crowd on his head when he came back into the studios and bowed to him. They all bowed to him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we were overhyping him at all.
So yes, like if you're gonna view them all as like equal players, and then we're like, who is more to blame, Rux or Reckless? Yes, the fact that Rux can't play meta champion seems like more of an issue than Reckless. But the fact that Reckless can't comp himself around Rux is also a huge issue. Like, you have options when you have an engaged support player. We've seen it in other regions. We've seen it with G2. When Mickey wants to play an engaged support, what do? They leave up Lucian Nami. They play Nautilus Draven. Like, you have Draven available. You have people playing Samira around the world. You have Kalista. That's an option. Like, you can play aggressive lanes if you think this guy is actually strong. So it's actually a problem on both fronts, which I think is being lost. If Reckless is truly a top tier GOAT 80 carry, like he is actually a top 380 carry in the LEC right now, why can't he play the aggressive champions? Why can't he comp around his support, who is limited in his first split ever? Reckless is the one that's supposed to be good. He's the one that's been playing for years. He's the veteran. He's supposed to be able to be malleable. It's not there at all right now. So it's weird. Like, so they try to make you into a Reckless hater if you're just like commentating on the actual
You're preaching now.
But think about this. How come when Perks performs pretty decently, like he's an MVP candidate, he has a bad week, why does he get hard shit on every single time his team does nothing. But Reckless can like be in this team, but you can just blame this like rookie support. Like,
I'll tell you the real reason.
Everything could go to shit around Perks.
Yep.
His whole team could be running it down, but if he doesn't win, it's like, he's the GOAT. Like, it just shows how fucking washed Perks is.
Accountability threat in a Cloud9, like an actual
you have
threat.
you have the fucking accountability threat. Like, these are memes on my stream, but I actually think there is just like this weird bias in the LEC towards like certain players like Reckless, I guess because he's like humble and Perks is cocky, so they don't really like the dynamic there. But in the LEC, I really, really hate like this way that they try to mind game you if you give any type of criticism to Reckless. Like, I think this was a bad split. I think he performed like a bottom 3 AD. And this Xayah pick, like, this makes no sense.
That's
the Xayah pick into Caitlyn Lux, it's never the right
blind
pick there.
By the way. No, 1-2 blind, by the way.
It is a drama queen pick. It is, my support is so bad, I just need to self-peel. Like, he's a human being, bro. He's a fucking like challenger level support player. Like, surely he can play something that's good at. You can play something around him, like he's going to do something good in the game at all. And when they had the kill angle, let's say you are playing the Xayah Leona, they had the kill angle in game. They had the kill, and Reckless fucked it up. He fucked up his flash. He autoed while the flash, or he flashed while the auto was on him. He died anyway, and then they lost their one timing to actually make something happen in the game. So I don't want to hear all this bullshit about, oh, no one wanted to play with Rux. There's this title that went on Reddit. There's like a hate thread. We're like, well, what does it mean that no one wants to play with Rux? Like, I'll tell you what it means. The other people, they'll say no one wanted to play with Rux, but they won't give you what the other options were for those players that didn't play with Rux, right? So here are the options. Upset could have played with Hilly. He wanted to play with Hilly, and he would rather play with Hilly than Rux. Hans could play in G2 with Mickey X, or he could play with Rux. Carzzy could play in Mad Lions with Hylissang, or he could play with Rux. Exakick would rather play with his ERL support, who he just won LFL with twice and went second in EU Masters, than play with another ERL player that he isn't comfortable with. Those are who the other people are picking over Rux, but they'll phrase it to be, oh, Rux is dog shit. No one wants to play with him. No, 3 of the players would rather just play with the 2 GOAT supports VU. Big fucking whoop. This is the triggering thing to me when we have these types of discussions. It's so dishonest, and people twist it to just make it seem like as forgiving as possible to Reckless. But like he just got stuck with Rux because no one wanted to play with him, and he just wanted to play in LEC so bad that he ended up with this dog shit support. I hate it.
Yes. Well, one thing I would say on that one, I'll actually answer your rhetorical question. Like, on the Perk side, I think it's obvious. It's just they think he's cocky and he's won a lot. So, like, the problem with being a fan is this: unless you're just a Perks fan, the other angle that people take is like, right, well, if he succeeds that much, I hope he's a human and he still has failures and he down, there's got to be something I could criticize so I can be above them. And the reason it's mad is this. Meanwhile, by the way, I'll tell you the Reckless one, because I figured this out half a decade ago, mate. The sad thing is, when they made all those arguments when he was like inarguably top 3, top 2 all the time, even if you didn't think he was number 1, it was actually a scenario where they were people, they had points, they had good points that they were making, and they could seem like they were just fans of good play. What I learned in the seasons where Reckless just played Kennen and just was a fucking diva, in the season where he had caps and he actually told his team, like, I'm going to play in a room over there because I don't want to be in the same room as you when we scrim, and you all scrim in here. And motherfuckers like Caps and like Soaz were on that team. When he was doing that shit, and I heard that behind. Here's the maddest thing. The joke is, you what?
Is it out? Is it public knowledge?
I outed that years ago. Yeah, I had Jez's come on and say it used to be a support.
Okay. Yeah, so it was on the crackdown. Yeah.
So you can go back and watch that episode. Yeah. So what I would say is this: is if the joke is one, the modern day Reckless fan, bear in mind he hasn't been that good for a little while now, is mainly just a fan of Reckless. They are like a K-pop stan. They're a fan of him as a person. That's why it's all about like, but what about his feelings? And how do you think Reckless felt? It's like I'm sorry, I have no empathy. I just don't view sports that way. Like I want to see like high level play. I want to see people play well. Like I don't, quite frankly, like I'm not the coach. I don't have to care if this guy's sad after the game, like the fact that that's what they're emphasizing tells me like they don't care about the play anymore. It's just about like, no matter what, they're going to support their player. And then the joke is, and this is why it's so perfect to contrast them with Perks that you did there, Dom, is they're actually the inverted people in terms of what they do. Because publicly, Perks is the cocky asshole who trash talks you and says you're all shit. But actually, privately, he is a very compassionate person and he does care about his teammates and what goes on and keeping the environment and keeping a team unit together and not letting it fracture. Behind the scene, it's the opposite way. Reckless seems because he says nothing. By the way, watch out. Here's a pro tip for life. Watch out for people who say nothing and people say they're nice. That ain't the same as being good. good and actually seeing good things. They're just not saying anything, and you just look by absence like, oh, can't be an asshole. No, this guy behind the scenes is the diva. He is the one who will have those. And by the way, I've had some mad disrespectful things he said to teammates or demands he's made of coaches and all the rest of it. Now, look, when he was on mega teams with some really good players, and he was a really good player, yes, he could win, because guess what? This is fucking sports. This is games. Like, it's not about how good you are as a human. If you have good enough players, you can overcome it. People know people like Forgiven and that were arseholes, but they could obviously be mega in the game. So my problem is that. It's like, I just think essentially, like, if people just don't know the real Reckless. And the joke is this, that's how I know their stands. Because they also, when I tell them all this stuff from behind the scenes, they don't want to know the real Reckless. And I know why. Because in their mind, they are like the 14-year-old and he's like the pop star. They have a version of Reckless in their mind that they've built up to be all these things. It's exactly like their fucking dream guy or some bullshit like that. So they don't want to hear me come along and go, oh, he's not like that at all. He's a bit of a diva, actually. You know, he's a bit of a tosser to that legendary player who played weak side for him. They don't want to hear that. That's why cognitive dissonance, they'll just attack you, the person. It's the famous thing, they kill the messenger. It's like, this is bad news. Why are you bringing me that? It's like, I didn't write the fucking message, did I? Like, all I do is deliver it to you.
From what we've seen in the last 2 years, I know GrabbZ is on like he's you know, he was part of 2021 G2, so he's not gonna go as hard as everyone else. But
no, you just get a beer in his hand. Oh, sorry, guess out loud.
I mean, you see what Yanko says on stream. Like, you can tell that, and the behind the scenes, you heard that Yankos didn't like playing with Reckless. Like, it was very obvious that
the good news about Yankos is Yankos doesn't really have a filter, so he can't really stop it getting out. It was going to bleed out, of course.
Yeah. So obviously there was issues within G2, and people did not feel comfortable playing with Reckless in G2. And then in 2022, his former coach from last year is taking like slights at him, shots at him on Twitter as well. Like, I don't know if everyone else is fucked up. Maybe everyone else is fucked up, but you hear 2017 teammates say that there are issues. You see teammates that were there in 2021. Selfmade even like said on like a stream, he's like, yeah, in 2020 there was issues with him as a person. Like, you have so much evidence from people, so many people that have worked with him, different people that have different motives. They all align and say the similar things. Like, at some point there is an issue with how he personally behaves within a team. People don't fuck with it. They don't like it. They think it's ego driven. There is some issue that people consistently have with how he behaves in a team environment. Evidence is there.
Oh, and the last thing to say is this. Another reason why it doesn't tend to come out, though, I'll give you a fucked up example. And obviously, Reckless has done nothing comparable to what I've heard Reginald's done to employees and stuff. But I'll use the same example. The reason I think the Reggie stories didn't come out, except for people like me who were labelled as haters, is because they actually viewed TSM as like the lifeblood of the fucking LCS. So nobody wanted those stories to come out, Dom. The premise there is, even if you're like CLG and you hate TSM, you don't want TSM to fall and Reggie to be like, these are key figures you need. I think the perception in Europe was, we need Reckless. Like, he's the only name that's been there the whole time. He was the face of the league until the G2 era. So, do you have anything to say on this topic, GrabbZ? Are you going to just keep it? You're doing a good job doing, like I said before, just keep it down, see if you just...
Yeah, we're kind of hard there.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
No, he has not been my favorite player to coach ever. That's what I can say. He did not fit in with how the culture in G2 was. And we knew that beforehand, right? Like, he was not the first option. He wasn't the first option for Fnatic either. That is just truth, right?
Yes.
He is not the Antichrist. He is not a nuclear bomb on his own. It's just that, as many players are, he can be very stubborn, and his reactions to things happening the way he didn't intend to are a bit more toxic, I would say, than other players would do.
They're not upfront toxic, is what people's like. It's not like he's like, fuck you guys. Like, it's like the slight.
Like,
I mean, the joke is he is Swedish. So it's just passive aggressive, It's not.
Perks will scream at you. Like, Perks will be in your face, right, and telling you how dog shit you are. I've been through that shit many times. Reckless will not do that, right?
Wait a minute, I can roll that back. I know you, Dom, you were thinking the same thing. Here's the thing, right? It's one thing to say that to. It's one thing if he said that to Mickey sometimes. You go, yeah, he said that to me many times. It's actual coach. Like, you're just dog shit. It's like, all right, look, agree to disagree.
But for me, like, that's self-respect, right?
Okay.
I come from sports and football, right?
What a chat this guy is, though. Hey, coach, you're fucking shit. Anyway, next scrim.
But he also knew he can do it with me, right? So I think that also like goes both ways.
I love it, though.
So how do I say this? Because the thing is, I can't count an accurate picture, because they have 100,000 people, 50 who hate him, 50 who love him. And whatever I say, because I worked with him, will somehow get...
true. Yes. It's ammunition.
Against me, right? So I have to be really careful how I say it. Again, I think the best way I can say it is he did not fit into the structure G2 was. He did not fit into the culture we had as a team and how we saw playing as a team. It was a risk we took. We know the risk. We knew it beforehand. It just was a bit worse than we thought towards the end, where the entire aura of us being unbeatable was gone towards the end, right? My players were nervous going on stage for best of 5, which I've never seen before. Especially like the summer against Matt, we were the best team in scrims. When we didn't go to Worlds, we go on stage, and I could just see like panic in the eyes of players, which I never saw before because we just went G2. We were like, it doesn't matter if we go down 0-2, we win anyways, right? That's not how it felt like after. It was not only on him, right? Obviously, but he's not someone who lifts the mood up, right?
Yep.
So he doesn't like actively destroy it, but it also doesn't help make it better.
Yes. Here's how I would describe it. This might be harsh. These are my words, not yours. I would say from hearing all his teammates that the team plays down to whatever Reckless's level and vibe is. So if the team's amazing and it's like all really good players and everything, then it's no problem. You're just going to win. But as you're saying, it's not the guy that, like, as I said, when it's breaking apart, I do think Perks is the guy who'll just be like, look, maybe I'll pick this or you pick that. You know, go on.
One thing that's really important to say as well is that because we have to talk about also what happens around Reckless, because the management, as far as I know, also plays into that because Reckless is so big. That means Reckless might just make an assumption or say, hey, this could be a good idea, means it completely in a good spirit. I mentioned, yes, sir, you're valued so much, we do what you want. I remember, and as a coach, and just to preface it, you have to sell what the team wants to do, right? You can't just be openly against it. So Reckless comes in, tells to my manager back then, and management itself, what about we have office hours together in the same room, we play together, solo queue, whatever, right? In itself, it's a nice idea, right? Nothing wrong with that.
It's fine.
I said, oh, this is not going to work for my players. I know them for 3 years. Youngest wants to stream. Wonder wants to chill, which is fine because he puts in all the energy in scrims. And management, no, we're enforcing this now. You have to sit until 10 p.m. in the same room, only playing League or talking about League. And like, guys, this is a bad idea. And management is like, no, you do this now. I'm like, hey guys, wonderful new idea, right? And so this is something that even if Reckless didn't want it to happen, just because he has this big status, makes it worse, right? Because he's like this golden, how is German is, he lays golden eggs. I'm not sure if the same idiom is
the golden goose.
Oh yeah, whatever, yeah. So he's
think of him like he's the most important thing you can't get rid of because it lays the golden eggs.
So
I've heard the same thing that in Fnatic management was also kind of babying him for many years, man.
Yeah, and that's something he doesn't want probably, right? So to give him credit, and I say it again, like he was not easy to work with. Many players are not, but he also has to think twice about everything he does because it just has way more weight on whatever happens, right?
Right.
So I think that's also why you always get only the PR answers he does, right? He never says anything bad because if Reckless knows, if I say this guy isn't good, his fans will eat the person alive, right? There will be nothing left. So yeah, he's not easy to work with. I can see why he played into the bad environment of the cat. He played into the worse environment we had in G2. He for sure was part of the reason, a bigger part as well. But it's not because of maliciousness or anything. But yeah, there are some aspects of his character that are not great in the team. That being said, though, Fnatic had many players like this, and as we mentioned before, just to say, the roster last year, I wouldn't have touched with the longest tick in the world. Like Yamato managed to go through the year without people killing each other.
Yep.
When I saw that roster, I thought like someone will die, like someone will get stabbed when he's sleeping or something. I was sure of it.
Yep.
Really, that roster, the Wonder, Razork, Humanoid, Hilly Upset roster, you thought it would be that bad?
Yes. Like character-wise, they did not fit, I think.
Okay. This way, if you notice, there's a reason why on 2 years where they didn't win anything, I always big up fucking Youngbuck for the year he was there with the Nemesis Reckless one, and I always big up Yamato Cannon for last year, even though he failed with because if you know behind the scenes, like the joke is these teams should never even have been at Worlds, never at playoffs, like never have a chance at going to a final. Like they should all have collapsed and gone out like first, second round playoffs for real. Like if you know the dis-synergies, like that's why sometimes even from the outside, if you just know a few stories, you just know sometimes a coach did work miracles.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't even mean that the players mean something maliciously. No. You just know how they think and how they talk to each other.
Yes.
And players, I mean, let's be honest, are not mature in the head very often, right? They are in their head still 15. That means you can't argue with them like with adults. There will be an argument. Both take it the worst way possible. So if you have players who argue a lot and are stubborn, you have more arguments and they all just hate each other because they can't see eye to eye. So the players don't mean it maliciously. They might be nice guys. They might be especially they might work in other environments. But that roster last year, I was looking, I was like, holy moly, Amato. You don't know what you put yourself into. And I think for that, he did a really fucking good job. Just saying.
Yes. That's why actually the joke is this. People have missed this one. You know, Dom, in the past, I think it was even on the Crackdown, we did like an episode where like Perks was like defending Reckless and even implying like he'd want to play. No, he was saying like Reckless was the best AD or something. And I said something like, so you would want to play with him. If I go into your head now, you have to pick your team. Reckless is your ADC and you go into Worlds. You're going to win Worlds, right? And he basically even quickly like backed off a little bit like, oh, well, maybe the circumstances, like he tried doing one of those, right? And the joke is, I actually think I missed something there, which is when everyone talks about Perks was replaced by Reckless and the influence different on G2. I actually do think Perks, the mid laner, might be one of the few players who could maybe fix Reckless in that regard. I think A, Reckless would respect him, and B, Perks definitely is not afraid to just be like, get your shit together or go to the management. You're not just taking his side and do that. Because I actually also think you made a very shrewd point there, which Reckless fans are going to miss and they're going to hate on you, GrabbZ. Which you made a very actually key point there, which is if you are Reckless, you are also in a scenario like you say. It's like if you're the celebrity and you have your entourage. You can't have an opinion because if you just throw like a random one out that you haven't thought about, like I think he's going to win. Everyone, oh, totally, me too, yeah. Well, we all do, of course. Yeah, he's definitely going to win. You know what I mean? Like everyone's going to overreact to what you say, so it is also going to be tricky yourself to like even just be part of a group dynamic. Like even Reckless, as much as he might be a prince, sometimes he'd want someone to go, no, I don't agree with that, and go, phew, I actually didn't know if that was a good idea or not. You don't want it every time. Like, yeah, we're doing what he says. It's exactly, that also is going to make you fucking close up a little bit. You're not going to feel the same vibe. And that was a pretty fair sort of defense or other context you put in there. Fair play. I mean, so basically, Perks is the Giga Chad who I think could fucking, make Stacey get in line.
Because Perks is the management, right? Very often.
Yeah.
That's just Perks'
Put it this way.
though.
Put it this way. Are you ready? Perks is such a fucking man that he would actually get Reckless playing well again. You know why? Because he'd say, obviously, I'll let you cook. I carefully phrased that so you didn't get your Twitch banned.
Yeah.
I was very careful how I did that. So it's all right. It's a bit too subtle for some.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that people just take it the wrong way. Number one, the reason why people talk about him is because he's the most popular player on the team, right? Like, I don't think that he was like complete dog shit, but I definitely think that he looked not as good. He definitely had issues.
Oh, can I please say? Oh God, please. For his fans, having perfect CS and playing bad with tower does not mean you played well. Playing well means playing to the maximum pressure you can put on the map, and this is not what he does, and he never did actually. He was really good at having his team suck up pressure early, and then he's impossible to kill. Like, he's actually not killable. And he does damage, right? But in games they lose, where he's like, but Reckless didn't int. Him not pushing can be int, by the way.
Yes.
Because then Razok has to want to... Okay, sorry for ranting, right? But I watched this on stream as well. The game where, Razok died on Vi against Trundle, no excuse, right? Even level 3, he can't go there even level 3, right? He can't.
Yep.
But I thought, this invade could be hard because invading Gromp as a jungler is really hard because the enemy support can be the faster, right? That's a fact. Mm-hmm. But I've never seen that a level 2 push can be like 8 minions full HP on the tower. That means Rooks had to wait until 3 minions die to hit level 2. So Nami level 2 ran all the way to the jungle, while Rooks was like, please man, please I need 2. I've never seen it before, that the wave just doesn't get touched at all. Like this, right? So this is also part of the issue. So you can't sit there and say, he has 0-0-0, he didn't end the game. No, him not playing aggressively can also be inting.
Yes. Oh, by the way, there's the other thing I want to say. I said it to Dom last week, but I'll just quickly reiterate so people understand. Reckless was the best at what he did. Everything GrabbZ just described there. He would survive in lane, doesn't matter what it is. He's always going to CS 1v2 if Hylissang roams. Like, he's never going to be super pressuring, like Forgiven or whatever. That's not his style. He's the other type of player. But when you get to the team fight and you have really good solos and a decent jungler, he is going to, you'll never get to him. He will do all the damage. He'll get all the kills. Yep. That's why he has all the pentakills. The problem I have is this. He didn't even do that this season. Like, even this season, he wasn't that good at weak side. And even this season, he wasn't that good in the team fights. He would play a little bit too scared. Like, the joke is, I've always said this. I always say, Dom, how if you come in the league and you have a name like Nuclear Int or Irrelevant, like, you better be amazing or your name will make you a meme. The way you know Reckless wasn't a meme is because even though he played that style, his fucking name is Reckless and he's the AD carry. Like, he actually lives up to his name now. Although, I will say, that's the one thing I always appreciate about Loco Doko. He's such an idiot, he even still to the end called him Reckles in, like, fucking season 9. Just a random shot to Loco there. Whatever.
Okay, Loco Doko's such an idiot.
I know there's not really a segue there. Just thought I'd throw that in there in case he's watching. It's probably broken out because of all the crypto shit, but you know.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Man, I told you fucking clean your act up, idiot. You could have been doing the show with me. Instead I've got Dom here. And he used to insult me in season 4. Whatever. People don't know about the old law, Dom. They don't know the OG.
Yeah,
the
they don't know.
No, they don't know at all. They don't at all. Right, I think we move on then. Because here's the thing. There's not much more to say about Fnatic, is there? The only thing is this. Unlike the other teams, like, you know, people are saying like about Excel, oh, maybe they do all this, that, the other. I don't, as beyond maybe, even then, I don't personally, the reason why I don't think IWDominate comes in is because it's Vethio. Like, you didn't sign him to just kick him after 3 weeks. You got to figure out how to work it out. So I think actually, if you know where Excel's at, I don't think personally they are going to make like crazy changes. I think they'll probably try and work on it. Fnatic should. And if we're real, like with some of the players they have, I think they have to make at least one change. So my question would be, purely speculation, hypothetical, what change would you two make? What would you make to try and turn this around? Because it's not like all the parts are bad. You know, like you were saying, this is another team with good players. Like beyond the Rooks guy, every player could be good in theory. So what would you change, Dom?
I'm changing jungle.
Really?
Which, to be fair, they did try to do. Apparently, they wanted El Yoya to or something, you know. So
Yep. I mean, that's it. That's all I got. Just change jungle. That's how it is.
Who do
Like, I
you
mean,
get,
I feel like
though?
it sucks,
Like-
but that's part of like being a jungler. Like, if you can't play around, they're just gonna find somebody who can take a different approach.
But how do you play around 3 losing lanes every game? That's the thing, right? Not losing, not pushing lanes. I think I'm not gonna say Razak played necessarily well, right? I'm not gonna sit here and say he did what he could. But I think every game you start play the game, it was from deficit every single time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just get a jungler who's less prone to int. So then, like, yeah.
So,
I mean, I
so
think
if you
that's
by
it.
miracle get through the game early, you can win. I guess that's fair.
I mean, I think that's literally like what you're left with, unless you're like, I think if you're only making one change, you're changing that. But if you're making
But then you Excel again, right? That's the same thing.
well, I mean, I guess you have to change support too. I mean, you're changing one bot, one jungle. You have to change support to make Reckless happier in lane. You have to get him somebody who he's comfortable playing with. You probably have to make 2 changes at the minimum. But I mean, I would like to see multiple changes. Like, I mean, I would like to see almost everyone changed from this roster. Like, I mean, who are you keeping together? Like, you have to break up the bot lane and you have to break up the mid jungle. So you have to replace it at minimum one from the bot lane, either mid or jungle. But who are you going to get that's actually better than these players?
I think you should think of like what is the strongest 3v3 jungle mid support you can get, right? And by that you decide. I'm not quite sure what's on the market. I mean, you couldn't have someone like Treats who will be like playing Alistar, Rakan, Leona, and just go mid. Beepo could work, I guess.
ooh, before jungle swap, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, he just doesn't want to play apparently, right? Like,
Doesn't
he
want
wants
to.
to.
Oh, I thought he wanted to.
No, he doesn't want to play in EU.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to be fair, there's no space on the coaching staff for his girlfriend, so. Oh, did I say that
Come
out
on,
loud?
man.
Oh, did I do that again? Shit, my bad.
Just-
I don't give a fuck, mate. You know me. I just don't give a fuck.
I agree with Dom,
Much
though.
like
Like,
Whipple.
I agree with Dom in the way that I don't think there's one change you can make that would magically fix this, unless you actually get to like Wonder or Reckless change the approach in terms of like taking the responsibility and trying to carry early or trying to make pressure early. It's the same for Excel, right? If Reckless or Wonder says, "Okay, I'm willing to actually counter pick and try to pressure to my maximum," then this team can be fixed actually. Because as much as Humanoid grieves, also Humanoid had the same thing as set of Excel, where he's like, my bot will not win, my top is getting tank, I have to do something, kind of, right?
Yes.
So, at least that's how I feel from outside. So I think, yeah, one change is really hard unless you get Wonder or Reckless to change that way. Even better if both can like do it like swapping, like one day I carry, one day you carry, then it's perfect, right? But if they both are more comfortable just waiting a bit, and I know for a fact Wonder could do it, so I'm not sure. I don't think that he doesn't want to. I think something else in the team is so wrong that he doesn't feel comfortable doing it. I mean, last year I can see it because we had Upset Bot, right, who is really fucking good playing from ahead, but also wants resources and uses them really well.
Yep.
So as Wonder, there's no reason why you would change that.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what happened this split, if there was any other reason.
I mean,
but that's the Wonder I know, right? I'm also very biased. I know that, right?
Sure.
Maybe 2 years after G2 he's just washed, but I don't think that.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like he's washed. I mean, obviously he like dies sometimes where he shouldn't, but I mean, that's pretty consistent to how he was in G2, to be honest. Like he would have some like int deaths every now and then as well. He just can recover from it and still be useful in the game, so that's why you want him. I mean, I have a feeling that what they're going to end up doing is just like doing the upset Reckless experiment, because upset like Reckless just has to be in the team, right? Like that they're going to give him more than just 3 weeks.
They're
So
going to boot him, exactly.
yeah. So I mean, he's probably just going on support duty, and we're getting reckless support in a Nautilus Leona meta, I guess.
Here's the problem. I know for the memes, everyone on Reddit's like, upset, reckless. I will just go ahead and say I would very, very, very strongly expect that never to happen. I don't think upset's coming back to this Fnatic team, mate. I just don't think it's happening unless they made like crazy changes across the board. So even though that's a fun one to speculate, I don't think people understand. Like I said, it was Upset's choice to be in Fnatic or not. And as far as I know, the real reason is he didn't believe in this team. And spoiler, fucking read the room correctly on this one, didn't he? Like, he knew this team couldn't work. So he's done the thing that people do occasionally, which is he just thought, why the fuck like play and I get the blame again when I look good on a bad team? I'll just sit out and wait till I get my chance to be on a good team again. So even though that's a fun angle for people, I don't think it's happening. All I'll say is this, even though it's mad controversial, I actually think the player I might replace, look, I'd obviously replace Rox if there was a really good player available, but the other player is Humanoid, and I have to say it. Because first of all, they're not going to be any playoffs with this team. So there's no I get the playoff buff. There's no playoff, but okay, how much? Shut the fuck up. Then the other thing is this. I actually also just hate his attitude in the game. I've always said this. It's cool to be Expecke and party on Friday night and Saturday night and play on Saturday and Sunday when you then do carry all the playoff series and you are a fucking Chad. That's because we're like, you're so talented. You did it in spite of that. When Humanoid does that and fucks it up and then just messes up, doesn't even win the championships, looks like, whatever, we lost the series. We're even losing to they were supposed to beat Rogue and be in the last final even, but they didn't do that. Then at Worlds, it's like, I had one good game, I had one shit game. What our problem with this player is this. I hate players where it's just their thing. I don't really try in the regular season. Regular season is what gets you the seed to make playoffs easier. The other reason Expecke was a fucking legend is because if he fucked around in a season, he could still win that super hard semi that shouldn't have been, should be on the other side of the bracket, but you have to play the other best team in the semi. He's just such a stud, he would beat them. Humanoid's the player where it's like, mate, I can't have you just essentially turn up a quarter of the time. I'm built the whole team around you. You're my superstar player. I want you to be a fucking legend. So even though it's controversial, because I don't think you can get anyone better right now, I would just take a stable mid laner. Because here's the thing, give me a stable farming mid laner. I bet Razork's twice as good. At that point in time, Reckless can probably get through. I think it fixes so much of the team, in my opinion.
It's time. They got to switch Vedio. The Vedio has to come in and join Fnatic. You have the Vedio Razor combo again. That
would be a wild trade if you traded between Excel, Humanoid, and Vedio. Not least because it's listen, Humanoid, we're going to send you to hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would also just actually improve both teams. I feel like both of them need a change of environment. The problem that you have with Humanoid is you just know if you're Fnatic, the second you kick him from the team, that will give him the motivation to be the best again. He'll just start fucking smurfing.
I know what you mean, but here's the thing, Dom. I've always hated that angle.
You think he's bad?
I've seen stories like this online. There's always these stories that go like this, Dom. My wife, I used to weigh 500 pounds, so my wife left with the kids, and I got really motivated. I'm in the gym. Look what she's missing now. It's by your own logic, you never would have done that if she'd have stayed. So shouldn't you be thanking her about that? You know what I mean? I agree. Even though I know what you mean, you can't think that way if you're the gym. You've got to just kick him and go, fuck off.
This only works if you get kicked unfairly, like Orama. Then this could work. But if you get kicked because
he really showed Koi with his performances this split.
He was the best player of Excel.
I think he was. No, the joke I would have is this, is actually the Fly guy did show me that he could do more than I thought, because now he's able to fuck up the careers of 6 players at the same time, and one's not even on his team. So that fucking takes talent, mate. Most people can only fuck up the 5 that are in their team. Bloody hell. Anyway, whatever. Right, let's do some other teams. Some of the other ones we can get through quick. So let's be real. Does anyone have anything to say about Astralis? I mean, I know they're in the next stage, so but the joke I said I was going to say, Dom, is the only thing they showed me is that Fnatic and Excel are really bad. I don't really know that I have any positives. What do I care about Astralis? I don't care. I think they're going to be the worst team in the next stage.
The one thing I had... Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say I agree. I have nothing to add.
I just want to add, I really hate the org for not promoting Cobbe more. Cobbe is consistently so good. He's having
the best split of his career, maybe.
He's playing in the league for 7 years now? I don't even know what his voice sounds like. I know nothing about Cobbe. You have a team in the franchise league, and the team does nothing with the star player. Someone who's actually very good in a bad team. Yeah. And I don't know. But either he doesn't want to do it, and then force him because he gets paid to do it, or just use him more. As a fan, I would like to learn about him. How is this guy so good in a bad team consistently?
Yeah, true.
And that's what I hate.
Yeah.
But
Fair enough.
I mean, he's
Speaking
a
of
pretty
being,
soft-spoken guy.
Yeah.
He's a pretty quiet guy if you like
he's
talk to
mad
him.
chill. He's mad chill, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, speaking of people who were good in a bad environment, me and Monty have TikToks now. So go to GG Monte Cristo on TikTok, and I've got man Thorin with 3 O's official. Here's the thing, I'm not dancing or any of that shit.
You have TikTok?
It's mainly just me roasting people. But don't worry, it's going to get spicy, because here's all I'm going to tell you guys. Remember, TikTok's Chinese, and they don't really have the same problem with copyright. I'm taking every motherfucker's stream clips. I'm going to be all over your shit. So if you're people like Doublelift, you haven't, it hasn't even begun yet. Your punishment must be more severe. So just wait and see. Just wait and see till I dominate TikTok. I'll be up there with shocks, all the big fucking views. And the difference is I'm not even changing clothes. I'm just fucking wearing the same t-shirt.
You could also explain what the Strawman argument is.
Yeah.
TikTok.
I should.
That would also help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, that was mental. The joke is, I think Doublelift's so dumb, he thinks a straw man is a scarecrow. Pretty good joke. That's a pretty good joke. That is actually. It's just pretty good if you get it. Anyway, whatever. Leave that one by. And the joke is, if you see the way he describes history, you'd think that fucking scarecrow from Batman had come and given him some fucking gas. Oh yeah, Reginald, he was doing all that shit. It's like the year before you were like, I'd love to play in TSM again with Sword Art, please, for $4 million. Like, give me a fucking break, mate. I've always said this, Doublelift's so dumb. Doublelift doesn't even know what his own favourite colour is, because he might forget as he's thinking to say, my favourite colour, what is that, like white? Fucking, anyway, whatever. In this case, his favourite colour is green, isn't it? Fucking trash piece of whatever. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's move on. That's the end of the Astralis segment. Let's agree. Kobe is a good player on a bad team. I agree.
Sneak their way into the Astralis segment.
It's all good. I guess
because
that's how little I care about.
Exactly. TSM hatred. Oh, we unleash TSM hatred. Now we're just on
came from TikTok. It's because he referenced the fact that Doublelift said the strawman thing or whatever, didn't he? Which didn't make
My bad.
Yes. As a German, he wanted to really correct his grammar. Shit. What's that called again? Never mind. Right. Look, we're not Excel here, baby. We're not, I haven't seen any documentaries recently. I had to stay off YouTube entirely.
I'm getting cancelled soon just by
It's
laughing.
all good. It's all good. It's all good. Nobody reports.
This is my life every week, GrabbZ. I'm just waiting for it to be like, you are now complicit in everything that he has said. Like, his opinions are your opinions.
I always laugh about fucked up jokes, but about what, and I'm just smiling.
No. It's all good.
What can I do?
There even was an episode where I did do a mad joke, and then everyone was like, and I was like, yeah, I like to just only take those chances on Dom stream, not on man, It was actually true.
Well, it's on my stream now. Hey, it is what it is.
That's true. Yes, you are. Right. Let's talk a bit about the last two teams, and then we'll just have some brief thoughts on the first group matches. Right, the last two teams are pretty good teams to talk about. Teams that probably overperformed. Right, SK Gaming, first one. Like, even though yes, at the end it sort of fell apart, whatever. Like, they've already done enough this split. They've beat all the top teams. What do you want? Like, what do you think, GrabbZ? Surely you didn't expect this from SK.
I had them as a dark horse actually.
Oh, okay.
I think they're gonna be pretty good. I think Irrelevant was someone that I told BDS even last to get for Academy, because I think like he was mechanically not there yet, champion wise, but I think he's really smart about the game. Just from watching him play. I mean, he has some weird ins as well, but I think every rookie has that at some point. The only weakness I thought they would have would be mid lane, but Satos also played better than expected. I wouldn't say he's like top 5, but he's serviceable. And of course, Extra Kick is playing also both. Like, I thought Extra Kick would be good, but I thought Jack Spectre, for example, would be better in the first weeks, but that turned out not to be true. So yeah, I think Sky is playing pretty well. They said they were nervous the first week, and I have a bit more. Like, I know Mitch pretty well, right, Crapple? So I know some stuff that might have been true, but it doesn't have an excuse. But I'm not surprised that they're good. They're not gonna beat G2 and Vitality good, but they might actually be. If you don't play well, we might take the 4th spot for Worlds good, I think, by the end of the summer.
Okay.
I said might, right? I said they take it away. They're not the favorite for it, but they are like a danger to get it.
That's the easy way to do the prediction. So then if you get it right, then you can say, I predicted this, and then you just like ignore all the context. That's
but I mean, that's what I said before the split as well.
Right, so. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. That's a bit better. Okay. The only question. Go on. Hit it.
Yeah, I think they have good players. I think it's just one of those things where Exakick and Doss look fucking good, right? Like they look like they look like probably the best bot duo in LEC. Like if you go for like AD and support, like they look like they have true synergy. I just don't know if that's something that's gonna like stay around long term. Like I don't know if other people are just not getting their shit together yet or what's going on. I mean, obviously Hans and Mickey X had good games, but I mean when you look at SK's consistency, they look really fucking good over the course of the games they played.
Yes.
And even in the lanes that they played against each other. So I don't completely believe it yet. It's like I'm seeing it, and they are playing legitimately good, and I see them like diving. I'm like, God damn, these guys are on fire. But I just don't know if that's like, is that their actual level? Because how the fuck were these guys not in LEC if this is like the level that they're able to perform? I don't know if something magic happened in the last 3 months, but I watched them in ERLs. They were the main competition for BDS Academy, and they didn't look like this. They looked okay. They looked good for the league, but I mean, you expected they would be what? Like they would come in and be like maybe the 8th best bot lane, 7th best bot lane, something like that. They look legit. I need to see more before I'm like really sold, because they also do have that. I mean, what we've always been saying on the show is they're like the misfits of this year, where they just have that stable roster. They're kind of like more than some of their parts, but they're flawed. And when you get into really high level matches, you'll probably get outlaned by some of the best players. That doesn't look like that's the case now. I just don't know if I believe that couldn't be them in the future.
Yes. So, and I'll even say what showed me actually SK was just a really good team these 3 weeks is even that loss to Astralis. Like, dude, I very rarely criticize item builds. It's not really my world. Why the fuck did MegaFed Exakick just build that like fucking, what was it? I'm trying to remember what he did. Didn't he build like the fucking Collector instead of Guardian Angel at the end of the game? It's like, mate, I think you just win the game if you had the Guardian Angel there. It was like when he was super fed. The Astralis one where they had no business with like losing, basically.
I don't remember exactly that in purchase.
It wasn't obviously a great game, but I mean, if you watch it, that's just an example of, well, I just don't know why you do it. Like, surely you just want to, you're the one who's going to carry the fight.
Yeah. I mean, I think for this game, the weird thing was just when I'm looking at this game, my biggest, he did buy Collector at the end of the game. That was pretty weird.
But at that game, as soon as GP was so fed, it was lost. There was no way of winning.
Well, fair enough.
Evolution of Blancas and unwinnable.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that's surprising, I'm not sure if people are like have caught on to it yet, is Irrelevant is getting Jax bans every single game. People just think like, and that doesn't sound like an Irrelevant champ. Apparently in scrims, this guy a mega Jax player.
He was one trick pony last year even.
Yeah,
like Jax was always on the radar against him.
Yeah, I mean he's getting bans every single game, which is good. I mean, if you're able to draw a ban with one of your picks every single game, it's a massive draft advantage for you. But the one time he gets it was into Finn and he got solo kill. Like it didn't look like he smurfed super hard on it or anything. And I wonder if that's something that's going to be just a core pick for SK, because when you look at them stylistically, Irrelevant is the weak side top guy. So why is he a huge threat on Jax? Like, even if he's really good at the champion, would SK play well if they have a Jax like on their team? It didn't seem like they played super well versus Astralis. So who knows?
And what did he pay top in this? Let me see. Nar, Sion, Cassandra, I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah. Nar and Sion have more impact in teamfights than Jax would have, right? So I can see why that would be different.
Right, let's just get some thoughts on Heretics then. Look, we obviously did the Yankos angle already, but aside from that, look, I think some of the players, like some of the I think the bot lane's been shit sometimes, but aside from that, generally, again, another team I think has overperformed my expectations. Some of the other players, I know Dom's not a big fan of Ruby, so maybe that's an angle. I'm definitely interested to see what happens in the next phase. I think they're one of the teams that falls for sure, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've become the Heretics hater, by the way. I'm a Heretics hater, I've realized. Okay. I really don't think they're good. It's good.
Just even when I see them play,
even when I see them win games or like they're playing well, there's like this massive communication issue within the team, or like not even communication issue. Maybe it's just a knowledge issue where people don't know what they can do. I'm not sold on the solo laners at all. I think Jack Spectre is good. I think Yankos is good. But like, if those are your two best players, if your best two players are jungle and AD carry, and your other players are not like top 5 in their role, I don't see how you're going to be doing anything with this team. Yeah. I mean, I'm low key, like, I think Evie is overrated by people. I don't think he's that good of a top laner. I mean, he got away with 6 games on Cassante. They started taking away Cassante and he looked like a completely different player afterwards. I just don't see where the strength of this team comes from. Also, when your AD carry is a good player, but Mersa for before these Heimerdinger games at the end of the split, he was just in contention for the worst in the entire split, right? Like, people were saying the worst 2 supports in the split are Targamas and Mersa, period. Some people throw Rux at if they're like mega, but like up until these last few games, Mersa was just in the conversation for being the worst in the split. He had some really, really, really awful games. There's something missing with this team. Like, they just don't have the firepower when it comes to player strength. Jack can only carry so much, and Yankos is only going to be able to
Jack also had some rough games, right? It's not like he's consistent every game as well.
Yeah, sure.
So then it's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to band-aid this.
So basically, Yankos has either Ruby or Jack, but he can't know before the game, so he has to flip correctly for them to be a threat, basically, right? Because he might, man. I mean, after this game, I don't think that's an option anymore. I mean, that was next level grief. Like I mean, I think it's a nice storyline. I also wanted to work, right? Just to make a region stronger, but like after that game, if you got 3-0 Necton and that's how you throw it away.
Well, he's aggressively fighting on the weak side when Ruby's TPing
yes.
to help him when he knows people are coming to his lane. Like if he doesn't know that mid's there, like are you a professional player?
Yeah.
And you don't know that mid is moving. You're making a play bot and your mid is TPing and you can tell that the mid is like, I'm TPing to cover you, bro. Like you're about to get 3-man dove. It's just so that you can get out of here and save your life.
Yeah.
And he just runs it and feeds a shutdown. I can't imagine that he's actually a really good player outside of that. I just think that he's got decent lane mechanics, but he just seems completely unaware of what's going on in the game.
And people had some devs where like he did the same thing, but that was like, I'm gonna flip it because the wave is bad. The wave was fine. Like, they didn't need to actually go at all. Exactly. He didn't need to go at all. That's the odd part, right? I could accept him saying like they should cover bot. Maybe I can flip it here, but yeah.
Right, let's do some thoughts on the actual groups, because one thing I'll say is this: if people are wondering why didn't you just make the whole episode like a preview of the series, like I know you in League of Legends don't know what a fucking GSL group is, and you're seeing a low bracket, you think it's the playoffs. It's not. It's just a group. Now, what you need to know about the way the group works is not round robin. It's very simple. What makes GSL brilliant is this: if you win 2 BO3s, you're through. If you lose 2 BO3s, you're out. That's it. So all you need to do is know it's just BO3s, but it's just when you win 2, when you lose 2. So when we look at these, right, the two groups, obviously, if people don't know, because I often forget to say this stuff, is Group A is the one where it's Vitality versus Heretics first, SK versus Koi, and then Group B is Mad versus Astralis, and G2 versus BDS. As I said, only top 2 get out of each group. Pretty balanced groups, all in all. Quite interesting matchups, even. So let's just get some opening, like, just some interesting thoughts on the first matchup. So, like, for example, Dom, surely you don't have any hope for Heretics in the Vitality Heretics series if you're a Heretics hater.
No, I mean, I think Heretics is just going 0-2 and they're just out. I think that Heretics is out, and I think that Astralis is out. But yes. I mean, the interesting part about, I mean, the biggest part about this group to me is SK versus Koi, because I feel like with how Koi has been playing and how SK has been looking so far, like SK looks like they kind of should be favorites, but I just believe that Koi will be able to get it together eventually as well. So
I'm actually sad you took that angle, though, because I thought I was going to be able to be like the one person betting on Koi. Because here's the thing, I'm not even a SK hater. I just don't know if they can do it in this kind of a format. I think Koi, for a series, they're not a bad set of players to have on a series. They're sort of like, their flaws not bad, you know.
I mean, and also they've like played series before. Like, I don't think Marcoon's has he won a series before?
No, he was always losing game 5, remember?
Yeah. I don't know if he's ever won a series in LEC before. So you're taking a bunch of players that have never most of the players have never even been in a series. Like the two that have been in series have never won a series. So you're banking on them versus people that are like champions, that know how prep works, that know like when you're really buckling down for an entire week, how do we limit them as much as possible? It's really just going to be on Koi being able to it's on SK's bot lane to be able to exploit Koi's weakness of their bot lane so far. If Koi's bot lane shows up, I think it's really, really hard for them to win.
Who are you taking for that one, GrabbZ? SK.
It's hard. I also want to say that SK DOS, they won best of 5s to be a champion, right? It's not like they have never played the best of 5 before, best of series.
I mean, to be fair, if I go to the park now, I'll dunk all over those kids. I'll look like fucking LeBron, mate. You know, I'll do a 360. Smash.
No, what I'm saying, like, because they're gonna play in the studio, right? Not.
Oh, you mean that angle, right? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So the nervousness.
They got more comfortable in that environment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Basically,
fair enough. Okay.
From what I've
just
seen,
on today, it's all good. It's all good.
Because technically, the way I see this group is that we're gonna see SK Koi twice, right?
Yeah, probably.
And I don't have faith in Koi to grow that much to beat SK twice in the best of 3.
Oh, okay.
So they might win the first one, but because the best of 3 is like only 1 week, right? You play every match basically, I think. So I don't think that in this 4 days they have of practice, they will beat SK twice in the best of 3. They might win the first time, but if SK doesn't go mental boom or like worried, they might win the second one. That's what I think.
Okay. I actually think
which is also why I think, just to make how much better this format is, right? Seeding mattered, because I think if BDS plays the first game against Astralis, they make it out.
Yep.
Because
that's one thing that's wild is, didn't they say something like SK chose to be in this group? And it's like, bro, I think that's actually dodgy because you'd be instead of G2, remember? You'd have had the BDS, must have had Astralis. I'd taken that one all day long. That makes me think they went off scrims or something, you know. Like, when I heard that, because it was Brokenblade said it in that interview, like, oh, thanks to like Marcoon for picking Group A. Like, if that.
No, it wasn't pick. It was you just
was that a joke? Oh,
no,
he means picking out by accident. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I misunderstood then. Okay, that makes sense. In that case, they're unlucky then, because I agree. If they'd been in Group B, I think I would have them getting out.
G2 and Vitality got to choose their opponents, right? For the first round.
Right, okay.
G2 chose BDS. So I guess like
then,
I guess G2 could have chosen anybody, right? So seeding doesn't matter that much, I guess. Then my point is...
Well, Matt is the one that chooses, right? Because Matt was first.
Matt was first, yeah, okay. But
Yeah,
they could have chosen G2 as well.
Yes, okay.
I mean, I think it like, so I was trying to logic out why the last games mattered. And obviously the big issue is that if Vitality didn't end up beating XL, they would have ended up 3rd, 4th. But the problem was, even if SK is top 2, as long as G2 and Vitality are, 3, 4, then they're just going to go on opposite sides of the group.
Yeah,
anyway.
Absolutely, yep.
So as like, there's no way that you end up with like, Mad, G2, and Vitality in the same group, which are the 3 best looking teams going forward. So I feel like this worked out no matter what. So I mean, the format has actually been good.
So it doesn't matter as much for the seeding
It's all
itself.
good.
Though.
Yeah. Right. Let's go to the other group because the other group's the way more interesting one. Look, I'm pretty sure. Should we just? It's just the G2 BDS one we're interested in, right? Like Mad is just going to destroy Astralis, surely. Is there even an angle for them? GrabbZ Astralis?
Not really. No, I don't see it.
What about G2 BDS then? Because here's the thing. I think you could look. You can do all the thing of like they have the legendary players in G2, but BDS, the way they've played, the way they deserved us to at least make out like they have a chance to win this series.
I have trust in Dylan to. I mean, I'm employed by BDS, so I don't want them to lose, obviously.
Yes, of course.
But I have faith in Dylan Falker to see how, and the coaching staff behind him, that BDS, like the patterns that I see in BDS, that he will see them, and he can attack them pretty easily in a best of 3 scenario in draft and in gameplay.
Yeah, GrabbZ is just hoping because if BDS starts like actually making a fucking run here, they win the playoffs. Like, come on, GrabbZ sucks.
I mean, bro, I get flamed no matter what. I still get flamed even though I have a job, so why do I care? I'm the worst coach anyways. Like, I know I worked with the guys. I worked with Nuke. Even though Crowny thinks I hate him, like I still like him as a person. Like I wish them well. I like Goto. Yeah. So if they do well, good for them. Like I have no hard feelings.
You're a better person than me. I was always rooting on the downfall of all my former teammates. Like
I mean, there are some ex-teammates I'm a bit harsher on, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But not on them. Right. So like if they do well, then sure, it's good for them.
Do you have any angle, Dom? Do you have a BDS angle for me?
No, I mean I have this. I have the same take. I think it's very, very hard for BDS to win a best of 3 versus either Mad or G2. Look, I think G2 is still probably the best team in that group. I know they trolled some drafts. I think if they draft solid and they like rein it back a little bit, I don't think they'll have a problem. Still think the best 2 teams in the league are Vitality and G2. BDS probably has a better chance against Mad. They've actually looked decent. Like they could potentially win that. I think it's hard though because BDS, when you're watching them play, not only do they require specific champions to enable their play style, like Wukong or certain top laners, like you need to have like these bruiser matchups top. Not only do they require that, they also have like one gameplay catastrophe per game. There's always just one absolute catastrophe where they're like pushing, they have like a small advantage, and then they all die. And these games, sometimes they're able to bring it back in best of 1s. I think in best of 3 series, that's a tough flaw to have. Like not being able to close the games out cleanly that you have leads it. It means that you're going to have to beat them like 4 times over the course of 3 games. You're trying to win 2 games, you've got to beat them like 4 different times. You have to outplay them in 4 different situations instead of just being able to like transfer your initial lead into just a win.
Yeah, one thing I will go on.
So there's the same thing as the SK Koi angle, right? If BDS was on Matt's side, I could see BDS win one of the 2 times they'll play each other probably. But since they're going to lose their first life against G2, they will potentially have to beat Matt twice again, right? To win 2 best of 2s? I don't see that.
No, they would beat Astralis, right? They would beat Astralis.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, so they only have to beat Mad once, but I mean, I think the problem is I could even see G2 losing to Mad because like G2 kind of like, I mean, they're still flippers. And they obviously just lost to Mad recently. Even if G2 loses to Mad, I feel like that's even worse for BDS. Like G2 versus BDS twice, I think that's pretty rough right there.
Here's the fun thing. People are going to miss that one. I actually think the Mad G2 game could be really fun. Because I'll tell you what, mate. I know I always go on the other side on this one, but I do think Brokenblade's a little bit overrated. And I'll tell you what, that Chasey guy can get in that ass, mate. That Chasey guy can get in that ass. So I think that's a spicy one. I'm very interested to see that. And I think El Yoya is better than Yike. Like I can start making cases why. I think that's an interesting match. Obviously, listen, I'll give Caps the edge over Niski. Even so, though, tell you what, for as much as he's Caps, he hasn't had that many of the big like mega like carry the game from behind games this split. You know, when the team did well, he carried. Had some very good stomps, but it wasn't like the best Caps I've ever seen. So I think that'll be interesting.
I mean,
What
Caps
I've been
was the
hearing
same
is that-
though last regular season, right?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
playoffs, he was completely 1v9 mode. So
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard about Caps from talking to a lot of players is that he is kind of somebody who like saves picks. Like he doesn't find
Right.
much use in like playing something like.
That's a goddamn meme because he always says like, I'm saving this pick for World Finals. That's basically
Oh,
like,
right, okay.
it's not that great. And then
No, but I've heard that legitimately like he doesn't see much use in like playing like Azir over and over again in like regular season and getting a bunch of wins.
oh
Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So like these picks that he hasn't played out, like let me see. Caps Games of Legends. We were looking at it. We were looking at it before, and he did not play like any games of Azir. I think the whole split. Maybe he played one at the end or something. But he was playing 0, and like that when playoff starts, when you're in a best of 5 and you need a Caps Azir, he's gonna pull it out, right? He's played what 7 different unique champions. He's played Akali, Ryze, Victor, Zac Mid, TF, Jason Swain. I just think that when he gets in real series and they need to get a win, he's going to be able to play the whole roster of picks like he always did and also be better on those like main core champions than other people are.
And the thing is, like, what makes Cap so insane is he plays every style really well. He can roam, he can scale, he can play early game. He just needs to know beforehand, right?
It's all great, but the problem is I literally have to go and get my food right this second. So we've had a good chat. Thanks to GrabbZ for coming on. And you know what? Much like when Lena left TSM, grew a conscience, and started talking greasy about Reginald. Let's see if we hear any more about that Exa kick in the coming weeks. That's the show.